Welcome back, everybody. I guess, what's that song? Back to life, back to reality. That's what we are today on a Monday. Although, listen, it is different than returning to work after, say, the Thanksgiving weekend, or returning to work after a long weekend in the wintertime, because you wake up, it's sunny out. I mean, it's just easier to get up and get going, right?
It's that, I think, also combined with when you add in the weather quality and the high quality of life during the summertime. The food you probably consumed, I don't know if it would rival, depending on your barbecue, the level of food you might consume on, say, Thanksgiving, but it gives you a little bit more energy to fight off those different calories and carbs that you might have stacked up on at the 4th of July barbecue that it does say that Thanksgiving outing.
Now, 4th of July, you did what, Jimmy Cook? And by the way, good afternoon to you, everybody. My name is Jake Query. That is Jimmy Cook. Eddie Garrison here as well. It is Query and Company here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. We were not with you on Thursday or Friday. Thursday, of course, for Independence Day. Friday, thanks to the company, meaning the company we work for, Radio 1, for giving us the additional day. So all of us were off on Friday. Hope you folks had a tremendous weekend, whether it was with friends, family, just laying around at home, going out and enjoying things. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. We've got a good show lined up today. Got a lot to talk about, including all of the sports that took place over that weekend. Pato Award, yesterday's winner at Mid-Ohio, is going to join us from IndyCar at 2 o'clock. And then after that, Dwight Freeney, who is in town actually doing something pretty cool today in Indianapolis with the Indiana Donor Network. And we're going to talk to Dwight Freeney. He's going to be in studio before his enshrinement, of course, in Canton in the NFL Hall of Fame. That will be a little after 2:30 today. But, Jimmy, your weekend consisted of what?
So 4th of July, we'll start there. We went over to my sister-in-law's house, had a bit of a neighborhood pool party there. That's always fun. I feel like if you, whether it's a neighborhood pool, whether it's a pool at a relative's house, I feel like a lot of people, at least in Indiana anyway, if you had the ability to go to a little bit of an oasis during the hot summer months, you'd like to do that. It's always fun, especially if somebody is working the barbecue and grilling out as well. That was not the case for us this time, though. It was pizzas. Ordered a bunch of pizzas in the neighborhood, a little bit more cost-effective and very tasty. Got my hot dogs and burgers in the day before, so that makes me, a little un-American in that regard. I can make up for it with this fact, Jake. For the first time in my adult life, 29 going on 30 for the context, I purchased fireworks. Because my sister-in-law said, we don't have enough. Can you go run and get some? I did this on the 4th. And I don't know if you've done that before, but I never, since legally being able to buy them, which I think it's 18 in Indiana, maybe it's 18 everywhere, I've never gone into a fireworks store before. Like, I'm not talking Meijer, I mean, the business front, it's
going to be a Halloween place in a couple months.
It's Halloween in a couple months, yes. I've never been in one before. And wow, was that an experience.
Now, here's the thing, Jimmy, and people are going to yell at me.
Okay. As opposed to you.
Sure.
I want to be very clear with my preface here.
I actually enjoy fireworks. When I was a kid, back before fireworks were legal in Indiana, you could only do like bottle rockets and sparklers during my childhood.
You could go to Sad Sam's in Tennessee and bootleg them into Indiana if you wanted to. But I loved going downtown, and I still do. The White River show is fabulous on the 3rd.
Yeah.
I like the downtown show, set to – I like all of that. I love the symbolism of it, the patriotism of it. I am all for it. I'm here. I'm 100% all for it. And people that want to go down to the bottom of the driveway and set off a couple of them for, 10, 15-minute show, whatever, that's cool too. I mean, 30 minutes, whatever, that's fine. If you are setting off like commercial – what's the word I'm looking for?
Like commercial grade?
Yes. If you're setting those off for more than 20 or 30 minutes after 11:30 or midnight in your in a subdivision, if you live in Mooresville, I get it, sure. Right? But like last night where I live, they were going off at 1:30 in the morning. You're a jackass at that point.
That's where we need to build on that. If you do it on the 3rd or if you do it on the 5th, I can give you a little bit of a grace period. Maybe I'm being too lenient.
No, I think that's fair.
If we're at the 7th, because it happened in my neighborhood too, and we're still shooting them off at 1:30 in the morning on a Sunday.
Yeah, you're
2 a.m.
2 a.m. You can top it. Okay.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Correct. And then, like, if you have the audacity, as we are right now, to point that out to people, then it's like you're anti-American. I'm like, no. Actually,
No,
I'm just
I
a
celebrate it
decent
appropriately
correct.
through the days that it's appropriate to celebrate.
So I like the dude. I know the guy. But for example, a guy that lives very near Shannon's house is a pyro, and he has now. And I'm not kidding when I tell you this. And folks, feel free to tell me if I'm being like old man yelling at clouds here. Okay, you can text me and let me know. I think most people have my number by now. 523-9288 is my cell phone number. But you know the aerial bomb that they set off at 6 a.m. to open up the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on race morning?
Sure.
There's a guy that lives in a property very similar to Shannon's in a subdivision, not in the country, in a subdivision, that has that level of firework that he sets off for 3 straight nights for hours on end. Probably, I'm going to guess, I don't know, 30 a night. Car alarms are going off, windows are rattling, and the entire neighborhood on like the neighborhood Facebook page is like, okay, enough, and like gets a kick out of it and keeps doing it. Now, again, I just think there's a level of like a decency that goes into it. Like, leave the commercialized expert stuff up to the commercialized experts, right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless.
Oh, by the way, but the fireworks store, they have
yeah.
QR codes now. You can scan, and it gives you a preview of the show that you would otherwise experience.
Really?
And I'm wondering how many people are actually getting the little preview before the purchase, because I didn't. I was trying to get in and get out, be efficient. I had a budget. I wanted to be under $100, thanks to sales tax and
That's 2 bottle
other
rockets.
tax. Well, it actually turned out being not bad because it was the 4th, and they're like, well, we got to get out of here, so we'll have some deals. So it was efficient. Ended up being $104, but for, I don't know, 8 or 9 things. But the QR code surprised me. Like, fireworks has now entered the tech. Maybe this has been a thing for years.
Here's what I would do.
Just scan it.
What do you want to see? Daddy, we want to see blue sparklers. Okay, fine. Here, bring over the laptop. Gone.
You know
See
what
ya.
you could
Thank
do?
you.
You could go a step further. You could save the link from the QR code, make a, have 7, 10 tabs on your phone, and then go projector screen style in the backyard and just take it home with you.
That's what I mean. Why not, right?
So anyway, the tech is apparently there, and the people, I assume high school to college age, or I guess they would have to be older than that, college age or above, that were selling me fireworks. They were very helpful, but I think they thought that I was trying to enter the pyro life, as you mentioned, from Shannon's neighbor. I was just trying to get a couple for the neighborhood show. So
Fair enough.
What about you?
We went to Wednesday night, just went to dinner, but Thursday for the holiday, we went to Carmel Fest and walked around there for a little bit in the late afternoon and got caught in an absolute monsoon.
Oh,
I've never seen more rain come that fast in my life.
So that's right up where I live, so we probably experienced roughly the same, just
unbelievable.
absolute onslaught
for like
of rain.
5
Yes.
minutes.
Yep.
Anyway, did that. That was fun. Went out to dinner, and then I actually was at Mid-Ohio yesterday and on Saturday as well. So I drove over Saturday morning for IndyCar. Pato O'Ward getting the win in what was initially not an overly exciting race, and then kind of out of nowhere turned into a really exciting finish between Pato O'Ward and Alex Palou. Alex Palou, the pole sitter, who was pretty dominant over the course of the race, and then in the last pit stop, O'Ward did what's called the undercut, where he came in and pitted early. Palou stayed out, maintained the lead, went into the pits, and had basically a bobble and slight stall in the pits. That was a delay in him getting out that allowed Pato O'Ward to get out in front of him, and then it was a pretty good battle down to the finish, and O'Ward was able to hold off Alex Palou. So that was fun. Massive. When I say massive, Jimmy, massive crowd at Mid-Ohio. I've been going to call that race since, I don't know, 07, 08. That is the biggest crowd I've ever seen in Mid-Ohio. I've never seen anything like it. I'm up on the keyhole, which is the area of the racetrack closest to the entrance, and cars were filing in until the green flag. I mean, a nonstop flow of cars. Kyle Knezovich of this station and Network Indiana, I saw him there camping with his buddies. Saw a lot of people that it's always fun to run into each and every year when I'm at Mid-Ohio on the keyhole, and it was a lot of fun. And then
anything to attribute that, by the way, For the reason
That's
that
an
it
excellent
seemed
question.
like it was the most attended since you've been covering it?
The fact, and I guess it's usually around 4th of July, but the fact that it was on the back end of the holiday weekend probably helped. The weather was great. That helps. And it's an earlier start. I can't remember in the past what time the race has been, but whenever you get a race like that starts at, say, 1 or 2 o'clock, and you still have time to drive back to, because a lot of people going over there are from Indianapolis, or Pittsburgh. I talked to some folks from Pittsburgh. But when you have time to make it back to wherever you're coming from within daylight, I think that helps, as opposed to a 3 o'clock start that gets over at 6, and then you got a 4-hour drive home, that kind of thing. I made it back in time to go see the Bodines at Hi-Fi in the Hi-Fi Annex last night, which was great. That's, I think, the 3rd year in a row that I've seen them in concert. Always enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. One guy came up to me. This was fun. I'm at the show, and a guy comes up and goes, "Hey, my son and I got our picture taken with you last year, and I still have it on my phone, and so can we do it again this year for the tradition?" And I said, "Sure." So Scott Newby, what's up, Scott? Appreciate Scott coming up and taking a photo. It was a lot of fun, and it was a good show last night.
Now, I don't want to undercut Scott, but do you think he's just the 12th person now that has an annual photo shoot with you? Or how does that? I mean, I assume that's a long line of people.
Jack is cool, too. Both of them. So
I had a nice 4-day weekend, by the way. Thank you for asking.
Well, you were over there doing whatever you do. You're typing books or something.
No, I was fixing the stream. We have a new layout.
That's my understanding is the break room for Query and Company on YouTube, right? There was an echo issue, but apparently that's now been resolved.
Yes, you're welcome.
Your weekend consisted of what, Eddie?
A whole lot of
creating
nothing.
Echoes that you do a really nice job of creating.
R&R.
You create issues that then you solve and then you take credit for solving the issue.
It wasn't
right?
That's
my
a great
problem.
CEO there, is what that is.
It was not my problem. I'm just a problem solver here, Jake. That's all I do is problem solve.
Any fireworks shows at all, Eddie? Or did you just vicariously live through your neighbors?
Nope. We went over to my parents. Olivia and I did on the 4th. Had dinner over there, hung out, played a couple of card games, and then we went home a little early because she had to work, unfortunately, July 4th night. So I just got to witness what was being shot off in the neighborhood till 3 in the morning.
I mean, that's okay.
If you're in the range, 3rd, 4th, or 5th, it's fine.
Here is what somebody just texted me. Okay. There are state laws that allow people to shoot fireworks from June 29th to July 9th. Most days it's 5 p.m. to 2 hours after sundown.
Okay. Well,
on July 4th, it's 9 a.m. to midnight.
1:30 or 2 would not constitute in that window.
Correct. I mean, last night, 1:30 in the morning for sure, still going off. And then, Eddie, you said 2 o'clock in the morning?
Yep.
Now, you live near J&V, right?
No, my parents do.
Okay. So
My
we don't know.
parents do.
So J&V can't be the culprit.
Not
Jake,
this
I
time.
totally agree with you on the fireworks. I'm normally an easygoing guy. But I absolutely go crazy over the idiots who totally abuse it. That from Mike the mailman. We have another mailman listening to the program.
Man.
Those guys always deliver, man.
That's
Always
our
deliver.
audience right
Of
there.
course. Walking around.
The entire postal workforce.
Yes.
How about the Indiana Fever, by the way, now, 7th in the WNBA, it really is starting to come together before our very eyes, right? And Caitlin Clark, the first rookie with a triple-double in WNBA history. This rivalry and I know this isn't where they got the win, but the standings rivalry and the rookie rivalry and everything else with the Chicago Sky is kind of what I think the league has wanted, and what you've been pining for is talking points, if you will, for nationally sports talk radio. And it starts with Caitlin Clark. Last night, I mean, I walked into a gas station on the east side of town when I got back in town, and there's 3 guys. It was like a barbershop. 3 guys just standing there talking. Of 3 different ages, mind you, age demographics, and they're talking about Caitlin Clark. Just going on and on about Caitlin Clark. I mean, it is, this is what the league has wanted and needed now for 20 years, and it's here.
I was having a conversation with one of my relatives over the 4th of July weekend about the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, about just where the WNBA has now catapulted itself into the national conversation in a way that just I wasn't experiencing. I think all of us in this room have now had stories of conversations either we were or were not a part of that we've heard at your local watering hole or your local sporting events that were, man, did you see the Fever game last night? Or did you see what Caitlin Clark did, vice versa? Do you think that we are seeing in the WNBA, and I want to clarify this on the front end, I'm not trying to undercut any of what Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark have done. I'm just trying to figure another comparison in sport for what this is. Is this bird magic? Like, is this what this could be? Is that what we're looking at,
Yes.
or is that going?
No, I think that's fair. In terms of, again, relative to the league that it's representing, yes. I do think so.
And the time when it happened for the league, like for the need of another step forward in overall popularity. I know Jordan is the darling from what saved the NBA.
I think Bird Magic is a very good comparison because you have the college history going into it, right?
Yes.
Of the rivalry starting in college. The obvious answer here, Jimmy, is that you also have the race element. I don't, and I know that people are going to disagree with me here probably, and maybe it's naive of me. I don't know that comes into play as much. It probably actually does to an extent.
It's forced. You're seeing it nationally a lot of ways to divide and to stoke fires, and you've seen it on the debate shows.
That's fair.
How genuine it is, I don't know, but you have seen it happen.
Let me rephrase that. I am not naive into thinking that the race aspect of it is not a factor in the rivalry, but it is not a necessary part of it because there's enough elsewhere. You're talking about two good players, elite players, with a history of competitiveness against one another on very big stages. And so, therefore, it naturally is there.
It doesn't need to be forced. It happens on its own.
Correct.
Right.
So, and I do think that depending on where things go, now, there is precedent with two young players that you say to yourself, boy, this, and then it fizzles out either on one side, the other, or both. For example, and I'll go football. I remember when and neither of these guys turned out to be Hall of Fame level players. One of them a very good player. But when Drew Bledsoe entered the NFL and was very good out of the box, people forget that the second pick in that draft was Rick Meyer out of Notre Dame, who was really good in Seattle. And it was like, man, these two guys this is the new big, this will be the next big thing. And it fizzled out because Meyer it didn't sustain. RG3 and Andrew Luck.
Mm-hmm.
I remember doing radio shows and having people on from D.C. where we just to debate the Andrew Luck RG3 Rookie of the Year. Which one's the better? Who's going to have the better career? Luck had the longer career, and RG3 was a very good player, but it fizzled out, right? Do you recall? There were times where I'm trying to think when was it Durant and Carmelo? Did they come into the league at the same year?
Durant and Oden were the same draft, I think.
That's right. Durant was second. Oden was first, right?
I think that's right.
Carmelo had somebody.
Carmelo was part of that LeBron, Wade, Bosh draft. That was 2003. They were all in that same.
Okay, so Carmelo and LeBron was for a while there a talking point.
Because he was coming off Syracuse national title.
Correct.
And LeBron was,
and Carmelo's
a
fabulous player, right? And then there's Darko Milicic.
Correct. The 2007 draft, by the way.
Okay.
On Durant. Okay.
Yeah, it was Oden, Durant, Horford, Conley.
Okay, then what about LeBron and Carmelo were what?
03.
03, yeah. And so those two you had in the beginning kind of this rivalry, and obviously LeBron separate. And Carmelo's a fabulous player, but you get what I'm saying there, right?
Right, yeah.
So, yes, for right now, you are correct, Jimmy, but what we have to see is, will this sustain?
Yeah.
Will this maintain in terms of the interest level, and will it continue to peak? Right now, the WNBA is enjoying clearly an upward trend, but will it sustain? Because we have seen other sports that become all the rage for a while there, but it doesn't last for totality like the NBA, NFL, and the odds would tell you that that's what the WNBA's fate would be. But we'll see, right? A lot just depends on what happens with these two. The Pacers had a press conference, an hour ago, Eddie? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that was to announce?
Officially that Pascal Siakam has signed his max contract extension with the Pacers.
So Siakam is in the mix. James Wiseman, that we talked about at the end of, not the end of last week, but the end of our appearances on the show last week. Jimmy, we now know that's official, that Wiseman is here as I guess you would slot it as the number 3 center, but depending on what he does, this is a guy that is still young, a former number 2 pick in the draft. Sometimes change of scenery and change of expectation can save a guy a little bit. Now, Wiseman's already been through that once, but...
Does it count if it was Detroit?
It's good.
I made that half jokingly to somebody last week, and like he did get a fresh start, but it was in an organization that, as we know, has struggled severely the last 10 to 12 years and just booted their coach last month after he had signed like a 6-year, whatever it was. I can't remember the figure, so I don't want to butcher it, but Monty Williams was getting paid a ton of money not to coach that team anymore.
I think you ask a fair, even albeit rhetorical and somewhat flippant question. I think it's a fair question.
I think I'd like to add, too, like, he wasn't the only center in that room. Like, they traded for Marvin Bagley, and they had Jaron Durant already, and Isaiah Stewart. So he was in a crowded room, so he didn't get much consistent opportunity.
He's had decent numbers, James Wiseman. But I'll go back to my Alex Smith. Andrew Bogut. Andrew Bogut's a good example. Analogy. And that is guys that when you look at their career, good, solid careers. Andrew Bogut had a nice career, right? At Golden State, good player. But he was previously the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Alex Smith, the quarterback, had a nice career, right? Jimmy, you saw him. You saw him play a lot.
Very nice career.
Solid player. But he was previously the number 1 overall selection in the draft.
Correct.
And so if you measure him by the expectation of what the team that took them number 1 overall thought, it was a disappointment. But if you measure them based on the second least that they got and what they made of it, you say, yeah, the second team got good return on investment. Now, if you look at James Wiseman in Detroit, when he came over, he had good numbers for the Pistons when he first got there, but then to Eddie's point, got buried a little bit, started 6 games last year, played in 63 of them, played a lot of games for them when he first came over on the second half of the 23 season, and put up good numbers. I mean, not stellar, but certainly Isaiah Jackson level participation or contribution. And when he started out in Golden State, he was okay until he got hurt, had a knee injury, and then it just kind of seemed to set him back. So he gets now, this is a low-risk, potentially moderate reward signing. You bring him in. If he shows that he's got something there, and, you know, he's athletic, he's 7 foot, I mean, he's still only 23 years old.
You're betting further and not a, high risk Jay Cook plays of the day type of bet here. We're talking about a rational, well thought out bet of it's low risk, but boy, with the way the Pacers develop talent, potentially high reward move. Because you're right, Jake, he's not going to be asked to be I don't think anyway, the backup center right away. That's Isaiah Jackson's role. That's something that, you see how things play out. There were times where that was a bit of a timeshare with Jalen Smith as he earned his stripes, and that was over a couple of years. It wasn't just one season. But James Wiseman, what he brings to the table, both from an athleticism standpoint and being another big in the league, assuming he's able to stay healthy, perhaps the style of play that the Pacers would ask of him with what they want to run in small spurts, it's the same effect to your overall top pick in the draft conversation. It's the same effect as the guy that was the best player on his grade school team, best player on his high school team, best player on his college team. Then you get to the NBA, you're not the best player anymore. Does your career fizzle out, or do you have a moment of clarity like Andrew Bogut did, like other guys have had, where, hey, I might not be the best, but I can be really good for my team and accomplish some stuff along the way to maybe even go after a championship. So I don't have a problem with the signing, because the Pacers, and this has been pointed out, Jake, by Bobby Marks, who we've had on the program recently. Matt Moore highlighted the same thing of Action Network last week. The Pacers, whether you think they're elite or whether you think they're average or somewhere in between, they have constructed a team based on salary cap percentage that works with this CBA. You have 2 stars that you're paying, a third in Miles Turner that the bill will come due at some point, but the rest of it's all spread out well. And once you have that core in place, then you fill out your roster with 1 million, 2 million partial guarantee guys that are low risk, high reward pieces that if they pan out are going to be godsends for you from a depth standpoint,
right,
which was what we talked about all year being a core for this team.
I love the fact, and I think it's almost advantage Indiana. This is the perfect situation for the Pacers coming up. The Pacers are in an absolutely, like, they put themselves in great position here, and everything went their way. Not just for this season. Because if you look at the season that was just completed for the Indiana Pacers, you look at it and you say, man, like, you ever have one of those days when you leave the house and you're driving somewhere and you get every green light?
Oh, yeah. Those are the best days.
Like, wow, everything just fell my way. And the Pacers just got done with a year where they left the house. Rick Carlisle was like, all right, kids, get in the bus. And all of a sudden, as they're driving along and they're looking at Waze and they're like, there's no delay. I'm getting here. This is like Jake's drive from Mid-Ohio to the Bodine show. He's absolutely making it in perfect time because everything's going his way. And that, I think, is going to carry over for the Pacers. And I'll explain what I mean by that. And a bit of a controversy in basketball, professionally speaking, right now, which I don't think really is one, but others seem to. I'll explain both when we come back to Query and Company. So last year, when I say last year, I mean the season that just ended, as we get set now for Summer League and the NBA, kind of turning the page towards next season, if you will. Everything went the Pacers' way late in the year, right? Tyrese Halliburton got hurt, and I don't know that he was ever totally 100%, but they go against a banged-up Bucks team that doesn't have one of the best players in basketball. They go up against a kind of battered New York team that doesn't have one of their better players. And they came together as well. So none of that is a slight to the Pacers because I think the Pacers played really, really well. And you could see in the Boston series, I mean, they were darn competitive. I know that, you don't hang a banner for that, and they got swept, so that sounds ridiculous. I realize there's no such thing as a competitive sweep. But they also got to the finals of the in-season tournament, hang another banner for that. But my point being, you could see that it came together, and we know what we think of Indiana in terms of the way that they played this year and kind of recaptured the city of Pacer pride, to use the 1982 Brown Curtain term. But the good news for the Pacers, Jimmy, everything went their way last year at the end of the year, and they put themselves in that position. But I love it for them now because there's zero spotlight or pressure on them. We just talked about, James Wiseman as the number 3. James Wiseman may never see the floor. But Pascal Siakam, you acquire him in the trade, and now you've got him. And so we know now that this is their push-in, right? Their 1-2 push-in is the Halliburton-Siakam combo. And then, of course, you have the accentuation of the other players around. And I think we know, this is who they are, and this is what they're happy with. They are comfortable with this group of, we're going to let this thing grow. But I love the fact that people look at the East, and can Boston repeat? It's how good is New York now with the Villanova 4 and then Julius Randle and OG Anunoby to complement? It's Orlando is really improved and they're young and long. It's Philadelphia now. Went out and they got Paul George, and he's going to be the number 3 guy because they've got Maxey who's growing, and then you know how good Embiid is. And then it's Milwaukee. Now we're going to find out what happens with Giannis and Damian Lillard playing together. And nobody talks about little old, sleepy old, forgotten, but young and anonymous Indiana. Nobody in the Las Vegas Strip is walking around talking about Andrew Nembhard. Nobody in Times Square is walking around expecting or prognosticating what's going to happen with Benedict Mathurin. Nobody is walking around the Riverwalk in San Antonio excited about Aaron Nesmith's development as a wing defender. That's fine. I love it. Stay off the radar and just go out and win yourself 45, 50 games, get into the playoffs, and let's go. Pacers and Racers again 24. That's my campaign. I should make a shirt. Pacers, Racers 24. Let's go. Don't trademark Why Not Indiana. I've already trademarked that. Don't even think about it.
Wouldn't you need to also get Pacers Racers 25 locked up too, since it's technically
not an election year?
Okay.
The 24
You're
is
exclusively going for the election.
Well,
okay.
I guess 24 is this year. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah. You're going for part 2.
Yeah, you do need. You're right. You would
just trying to make sure
25.
you get all your bases covered as president.
No, you're right.
Of the company.
Pacers Racers 25. Yeah, you're right because that's next year. You're right.
No, look, this is an opportunity for them to go in to some extent stress-free. Competitors aren't going to allow themselves to do that from a mental standpoint. I get all that, but they're going to get forgotten about. They will get forgotten about initially as the media continues to gravitate towards the shiny objects of everything you just outlined. What Philadelphia has done to get better, what New York has done to get better, Orlando being a year better with experience, Cleveland and all that they have had going for them within Donovan Mitchell's arrival and what Evan Mobley's meant to that team and all of that. There are pieces across the board in Milwaukee. They'll get lost, but it's a nice place to be because nationally the expectations might vanish. Like the national coverage has you as a because that could still happen. Again, the one thing I love about family get-togethers or whatever, barbecues or 4th of July stuff, is at some point when you're with your friends, sports become a part of the conversation. At least in my circle, that happens. And another conversation I had was, I'm sure there is talk nationally when you look at the Pacers and saying, I don't know next year if they're going to be back in the conference finals or a play-in team again. I don't think that's how we feel about it locally, but I feel like you look at all the things, Jake, that happen around the rest of the East, and all of a sudden, if you're just looking at it without remembering what the Pacers did last year and just remembering the injuries that occurred along the way, it'd be very easy to say, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're a 6th seed. I don't see where they fit in the Eastern Conference. I don't think we see it that way, but I think that's going to happen nationally because there is still a gravitation towards Tyrese Halliburton is a face of the league, a growing face of the league. He's going to be a part of Team USA. We know that. He had his coming out party in the in-season tournament, and you saw what he was able to do as an all-star, as an ambassador for the city with All-Star Weekend. Like, he is a rising star in this league, but too often will they get lost in the shuffle, I beg your pardon, of expectations nationally because of the moves that happen. And I'm with you. I don't mind that. I don't care where they're viewed nationally because I know that this wasn't just a team taking advantage of injury opportunities. This is a team that made great strides. And you brought up the Pascal Siakam presser today. I don't know if this is just me being nostalgic for Indianapolis, Jake. You can tell me as the chairman of the board and our elder statesman in this conversation as the second half century of your life, Jake Query, that you are. It's nice to see somebody that has no real roots here put pen to paper on an extension and say things like, I'm paraphrasing here, but I love this team. I love this city. Like, well, that's a great feeling.
Why is Reggie Miller the most popular player in franchise history?
For those exact reasons.
Because Reggie Miller came from L.A. and adopted, and when they got up on New York, he said, "This is for you, Indiana. We're coming home." And people are like, "He gets it. He's adopted the Indiana chip on the shoulder." Right now, Halliburton is representing not only Indiana but the entire United States on Team USA. Right. Mm-hmm. Here's another thing that I love. I'm just in a loving mood today. Right. Eddie pulled down the microphone like
you must have got a lot of rest then.
I didn't get a lot of rest. I did make it back quickly.
I'm not just talking about last time. I'm talking about over the last 4 days.
Well, it was a hectic 4 days though because I did the race. I was over in Ohio. I went after the race on Saturday after qualifying. I went to Ashland, Ohio, to meet my buddy Damien who lives in Cleveland. And so we're sitting in Ashland, Ohio, and I said, literally the only reason we met in Ashland is because it's halfway between where I was at the racetrack and where he lives in Cleveland. So we're in this town of Ashland, Ohio, and we're sitting there having dinner, and I said, think there's anybody famous from this town? I don't know. Let's look it up. So we look it up. Ron Zook, native of Ashland. There was one other one that surprised me, but then I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, man, Tim Richmond. Racing legend Tim Richmond, 1980 Rookie of the Year in the Indy 500, also a NASCAR star, sadly passed away of AIDS in the late 80s. And I'm like, holy cow. His resting place is in Ashland. It's like 2 miles away. Check, please. So we went and paid our tributes to Tim Richmond. And then I made it back, and I was so thrilled yesterday and so flattered that so many people came up to me at the Bodines concert and asked, and I quote, now, did you fly back from Ohio? Because we were just listening to the race or watching it like 3 hours ago, and you're standing here watching the Bodines. And I said, I have a master exit plan when it comes to racing. But
is that also copyrighted?
That is not copyrighted, unfortunately. Although the master plan I keep secret so nobody can steal it.
Sure.
Now,
well, you revealed that to me before the show, so
my master plan.
You did.
I think it was solid,
to secrecy, wasn't it?
At that point.
It is solid. But with that, the reason I'm in the loving giving mood on top of all those things is because
it's almost Christmas in July.
There's just good news, and it's Christmas in July here, and I love this fact.
Shannon caved, and she's going to Nashville with you?
We have not gotten into whether I'm going to Alanis Morissette or Hootie and the Blowfish. We have not had that conversation just yet.
If you haven't heard about that conversation, where have you been?
That's right. I love the fact that Anthony Edwards, this is what Team USA needs, quite frankly. Okay? Team USA, do we have the roster in front of us of everybody that's on Team USA? Because when you get into international competition, the challenge is this. A lot of other countries, their national teams have been playing together for years. And so you see, I think about the 87 Pan Am Games when Oskar Schmidt came here and went absolutely bonkers and dropped 42, I think, on the United States and upset the back then collegians. But Purvis Ellison and Dean Garrett and Keith Smart and Rex Chapman and Danny Manning.
There's a great documentary on that. I can't remember if it's a 30 for 30 or what it is, but we stumbled upon it, Jake, like middle of high school, and that whole summer was Oskar Schmidt. Like, oh my gosh, this guy just came in and just dominated.
Unbelievable.
It was incredible.
It was one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen. But the challenge there was that Brazil was a national team who had played together for, number of years. And you see that with other nations, their national team, they have defined and understood and symbiotic roles on the floor that just there's a cohesiveness that oftentimes the sum of the parts is better than the individual part, is stronger than another team's strong individual parts. And in Team USA, historically speaking, do you have the roster in front of you, Jimmy?
I'm looking at it. Yeah, I got it. Yep.
Okay. There's no doubt. Read the roster real quick, Eddie, for Team USA.
Bam Adebayo, Devin Booker, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Anthony Edwards, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Halliburton, Drew Holiday, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Jason Tatum.
Okay, fabulous team. Unbelievable talent there. But the one thing that team doesn't have that every other team that you're going to see in international competition in the Olympics likely has is a clear understanding amongst the roster of role. Because it's guys that aren't used to playing with each other. Yeah, they probably played AAU ball together. Some of them might have played professionally together or, whatever. Anthony Edwards comes out, the Timberwolves guard, and says the following: I'm still the number one option. Y'all might look at it differently, but I don't. Now, you're talking about a team of a bunch of alphas, right? I just go out there and be myself, shoot my shots, play defense. They got to fit in to play around me. That's how I feel. You know what? You could say that that's a guy that's not going into the team concept, but I like it because as long as the rest of Team USA, and this guy is clearly capable of being option number one. He was in Minnesota. I watched him here in one of the most unbelievable performances of closeout that I've ever seen in an NBA game.
I still have nightmares over that game.
I mean, he not only hit every single shot that needed to be hit in that game here at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, but then at the end hits his head on the backboard, blocking the potential game-winning shot for Indiana. He absolutely took that game from the Pacers.
It's one of the dirtiest end-game blocks. Like, I mean, there's a long list. I know it wasn't in the playoffs, but man, was it sweet.
He is an absolute dog mentality. And that's what you need. You need one guy. And
he's clearly the face of the next wave. Like he's you never know where the career is going to pan out, but he's clearly the young kids that are knocking on the door, ready to take away those mantelpieces. He's that face.
And here's the thing. He's young, he's brash, but by and large, he backs it up. And I know that there were a couple of games in the playoffs he might not have had great games, but he, the Timberwolves, he elevated them, put them on his back. They've got good players there. Karl Anthony Towns is a good player. Rudy Gobert's a good player. But what Team USA needs and what Team USA has lacked that other national teams have is a very clear understanding of everyone's role. And oftentimes in games where you have – go back to – and I know that I go on the way back a lot, but a good example of this. The 1991 UNLV team that came here undefeated in the Final Four at the Hoosier Dome was as good a team in college basketball as we had seen in years. You had Anderson Hunt and Greg Anthony and Larry Johnson and Stacey Augmon and George Ackles. That team was loaded. Loaded. But late in the game against Duke here, in one of the stunning upsets in Final Four history, late in the game, and think about that. They lost to Duke, who was getting ready to win the first of two back-to-back titles. Duke, who was just entering into a dynasty. Duke with Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley, two of the great college players of all time, and not to mention freshman Grant Hill. They were beaten by Duke, and it was considered an upset. Now, what does that tell you about how good that Vegas team was? That Vegas team was absolutely loaded. It was LA Lakers Showtime and New York Knicks grind out all in one. It was loaded. But as that game got tight and was late, they hadn't been challenged in a year. And so you had 5 guys that didn't know what to do because nobody knew who the guy was. Larry Johnson was the college player of the year and the number 1 pick in the draft. Larry Johnson bypassed an open look and dishes it off to Anderson Hunt for like a 35-footer to end the game because they didn't have defined roles late in clutch as to where the ball was to go. So I love that this Team USA is, so long as Kawhi Leonard and Tyrese Halliburton and Jason Tatum, and that's going to be tough, but so long as they actually say about Anthony Edwards, you're right, let the alpha of the alphas be the alpha and let everybody else buy in, and you're good.
There's 4 guys, though, on this roster, even though some of them are ranging in age, that if they're in a late close game, which, depending on your draw, depending on what happens, maybe that happens in the final. Like, I think most people expect, even with the continued increase of international talent, Giannis with Greece, Wembanyama with France, like, you have representation in the NBA outside of Team USA. Despite that getting stronger by the year, I think the large expectation is once again another gold medal for them. But LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Kawhi, like there are guys where I'm curious, Jake, how much that factors in, because Anthony Edwards is a dog and is a great player, but there are other guys that, depending on what Steve Kerr's philosophy here is, have more tenure, are arguably better all-around basketball players than him.
I get it, but here's the difference. A lot of those guys they are late-game shot makers and takers because of their talent level. Anthony Edwards is the one, to me, above all of them, who is a late-game shot maker and taker because of attitude. And that's the difference. Jason Tatum's going to take shots because he's good enough that he gets himself open. LeBron's going to get shots because he's good enough he's going to get himself open. Anthony Edwards gets shots because he is the quintessential get the hell out of my way guy. And so as long as you have it appointed and it's a guy that is willing to take that role, then that's what you want to see. And I'm perfectly comfortable and fine with it being that guy because that's what he is saying. He's like Steven Jackson, baby, make love to pressure. Now, it's going to be, if you think to yourself, you know what, I'm back at work, it's back to life, it's back to reality, why not take another day of fun away from the job? A week from Thursday, as a matter of fact, is what I'm talking about. Presented by Franciscan Health, it is our Fan on the Back Nine golf tournament, July 18th. That's a week from this Thursday. Back Nine is fabulous. From the upper bays, you can see a fabulous view of downtown Indianapolis. Doors opening at 11 o'clock, and then everything gets underway at noon. We will be broadcasting live from there, so too will JMV. Silent auction items for Franciscan Health Foundation, including sports memorabilia, one-of-a-kind experience for everybody to bid on. Jack Daniels will be there presenting fabulous beverages for everybody. There will be food as well, and this is all getting underway, again, 11 o'clock in the morning, with clubs starting to swing at noon. We're going to be there. Jimmy, you give yourself, on an A to F, you are what level of golfer in terms of the passability of your swing?
Oh, you say a scale 1 to 10?
A to F.
A to F, C minus, but I am actively now taking some lessons, took the plunge like you did. I figured out that, at least from an iron standpoint, I was treating the club kind of like a pendulum when I should have been treating it more like a sharper cut. So that's helped a little bit, but we're in the infancy of said lessons.
Irons are tough.
Yes, they are.
But
like, I'm sure you experienced
irons.
this through your golf lessons. Like, I hit one of the best shots I've ever hit.
It's unbelievable.
And it was like, okay, wow, I've been doing this wrong the whole time. I don't know how often I can repeat
three
it. Yeah,
shots
exactly.
later,
you chunk it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but no, it's been good.
Eddie, yourself?
I wasn't listening.
Grade your
I'm
golf
doing
swing,
work over here.
A to F.
By the way, do you ever notice this? That Eddie gets upset when he's not incorporated into the show, and then when we throw him a lifeline, he's drowning and he doesn't look over and notice that there's a flotation device next to him, right?
I told you I was working.
Well, what work are you doing?
I'm working on stuff for the podcast, Jake.
Okay.
What are Jake and I doing? Just hanging out?
You're working right now, too. See, we're all working
On an A to
here.
F scale, Eddie, your level of golf swing is a what in terms of passability?
Oh, D. C or a D.
See, it's tough for you because you're a baseball guy, right?
I've only golfed once, and it was like a month ago at Back Nine.
So you've not gone out into the wild and played on a golf course?
Nope.
Okay. It would be hard, I would think, because, I mean, by no means am I some expert. I also just started playing in March, but I go once a week for lessons at the minimum, if not playing. And, you know, as a kid, when you grow up, every guy does this. When you were, like, starting in probably third grade, could you not walk past, like, underneath a door pass without at least doing a layup and or a dunk?
Right.
Or Euro step in today's age.
Yeah.
And then likewise, every once in a while, you just walk around and put your thumb into your palm like it's a baseball bat and do a baseball swing into thin air, right?
Yep.
Just out of whatever, out of instinct.
Yep.
And that's the problem is if you got a baseball swing, which you do, Eddie, it's different than a golf swing. And so it's like Chicago. It's a hard habit to break, right?
Yeah, when I went out there about a month ago, like I said, at Back Nine, I was just slicing everything, and it was frustrating me. I'm like, I can't figure this out.
Oh, that's your club face, Eddie. I've learned that much.
A lot of it is club face. Club face and grip.
Yes. Yep. You are taking lessons.
I am. Yep.
That's right. Make sure you stand close. Yeah. Keep that.
Address the ball.
You do
Eddie.
the towel under the left arm?
We've not gotten there yet. I'm sure we will.
People listening who are regular golfers are like, oh my gosh, these guys are the biggest neophytes. Pato Award, 2 o'clock. Dwight Freeney, 240. Still a loaded Monday yet to come here on Query & Company. It is the 1 o'clock hour on a Monday. How are you? My name is Jake Query. Jimmy Cook, the other voice you hear in this program, along with Eddie Garrison, who chimes in when he is paying attention, which is, what are we looking at, Eddie? About 10% of the time?
I can't undercut myself there. So
10%
I'm
of
not,
the time
I'm not
it works.
answering.
10%
I'm
of the
happy that
time
you
works every
actually
time,
were
Brady.
following along with what I said there on that one,
What are you
right?
talking about?
Now, we were talking about Team USA. Anthony Edwards saying that, hey, his mentality going in is that he's going to be the guy. I like that personally. I think it's needed. We'll get into Tyrese Halliburton's role. Jimmy, you said something interesting during the break that I wanted to touch on, and that is, and I understand why you would say it, especially based on age, that little surprised that LeBron has another Olympic run in him. And something that we haven't touched on, and I know maybe it's kind of a tired topic, but I do think it's interesting because there are a couple of vantage points that I really haven't heard anywhere, and I'm surprised that no one has voiced this, because to me it seems kind of like an obvious take. And I know that LeBron James is a really polarizing figure, which amuses me, because to me, say what you want about whether or not he's a better player than Jordan, or whether he's, has the killer mentality of, Jordan or Reggie Miller or whatever player you want to pick. I have always said, and I do believe, he is the most versatily skilled player in the history of the NBA. Only Wilt Chamberlain would be close, probably. But LeBron James now is, there's a lot of discussion and heat and everything else about the fact that his son, Bronny James, was selected by the Lakers, and whether or not that was orchestrated by LeBron, which, it probably was, or whether it's just to appease LeBron and the absurdity of it. And you've seen all of the memes and the graphics and the viewpoints of, here's a guy that averaged 21 a game in college and went undrafted, and Bronny James averages 4 points a game and gets drafted. This is ridiculous. It's absurd. It's nepotism. And you know what I say to all that? Yeah, you're probably right. Probably is nepotism. And there probably is a little bit that goes into, would Bronny James be selected, averaging 4.5 points a game with a huge medical red flag out of USC, if his last name was Cook, Query, or Garrison? No, of course not. But think about elite level athletes that you knew growing up. You know what a lot of them have in common? And I'm talking about the ones that go to like the Division I level. Most of them are the offspring of elite level athletes. When you start talking about the high Division I level or into the professional ranks, more often than not, their genetics are relatively undefeated. And you have somebody who is the most versatilely gifted athlete in the history of the NBA, arguably, and you have a chance to watch, grow, or see if there's something there. Round 2 is about flyers anyway. If the Lakers had taken a guy that was 7'1" out of Italy, who nobody had ever seen play before, and he's one of these guys that you saw playing on what looks like the Tabernacle Church with a Voight basketball on grainy Zapruder film on draft night, and they took him 55th overall, and they were like, we don't know a lot about him, but he's got upside. Would people be complaining that they took that guy over somebody out of Stetson that averaged 24 a game? No. But you're taking it because it's a flyer, right? Well, Bronny James is a flyer because you look at it and you go, okay, if he can grow into, and we probably know now that he's at his max height, but the genetically speaking, if any of that can be tapped at even 20% for a 55th pick overall, okay, fine. But additionally, what about the marketing of it? You think kids in Los Angeles aren't going to wear Bronny James jerseys, buy a T-shirt, buy something that has his image and likeness on it? Of course they will. More so than any player you're going to take 55th. But the bigger thing to me of why I just think to myself, why are we not going here, is this. I think that when players get to a certain point, no matter who it is, whether it's Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or LeBron James or Tiger Woods, we are a society that likes to take athletes, people in general, build them all the way up, and then, of course, start to tear it down, right? We've seen it a gabillion times. And in the case of LeBron James, I think there are certain people that because of, and yes, you can say it's because he's politically outspoken. Well, there's no athlete in the history of this country that was more politically outspoken than Muhammad Ali, who was one of the most beloved athletes of all time, right? There are certain athletes I can name or think of within football, for example, that have linked or sided with one political side or the other. And yes, that does get polarizing, and I understand it. And it nullifies and it voids out 50% of your audience. I totally understand that. But aside from that standpoint about LeBron, I think there are people that with LeBron James, partially because of the politics, I get that. But I think more so just because he has been the best for so long and people have tried to bring him down in so many different ways. This is a guy that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated in high school, was labeled as, quote, the chosen one. Do you know how seldomly people with that kind of an expectation and praise going in actually live up to the hype? And he did. And he was playing in his hometown, and there's a ton of pressure that goes with that. But he still delivers, and he takes Cleveland teams that have rosters that literally look like a G League team, and he takes them to the finals year in and year out. Did he win it? No, not until he came back. I get that. And then he went to Miami, and that's polarizing because he left his team, and he turned it into a TV broadcast of the decision. But you know what? That's all anybody was talking about for that summer. Everywhere you went was, where's LeBron going to go? Where's LeBron going to go? And so ESPN goes to him and says, hey, do you want to do it this way? And he says, if I can turn it into a fundraiser for the boys club, okay, so they do. And it's a bad look for him because he left his hometown. But when people are in their early 20s and they leave home to go to college or to go to another city, we applaud it. Little Johnny got a job, and he grew up in Yuma, Arizona, and he's leaving Yuma because he got a job in Omaha, and we want to wish him the best, and we're having to go an away party for him because we're so proud of how he's spreading his wings. But LeBron James doesn't. He's a bad guy. So then he goes away. He learns at his college, essentially, the Miami Heat, and he perfects his skill a little more, and he comes back, and then he delivers on what he promised his hometown, which is an NBA title, and he brought it to him. So am I being an apologist for LeBron James? Maybe. But the final point I wanted to make is this. For people that wanted to tear him down, in a world where everybody has a cell phone and would love to have video of him being rude to a waiter or cussing out a bellhop or being mean to a kid, I've never seen any of it. And for people that want to tear him down and say that, you know, he's not a great player or he doesn't have the longevity of other great players. He's the all-time leading scorer in the NBA, and he's, 20 years in the league, however many it is now, and still playing at a very high level. Is he elite to the point where he was? Probably not by his own standard, but he's still a very good player. But the thing that people, I think, would, with LeBron James, that nobody is giving him credit for here. The last attack that I've seen, every other attack on LeBron James has eventually been nullified. So the last remaining one is that he is an enabling, helicopter, overly promotive, and overly involved meddling father that is getting his kid an opportunity in the NBA. Now, think about that. Did LeBron James even know who his dad was? Have you ever heard LeBron James' father anywhere? Have we ever even heard of who his father is? And by all account, if LeBron James is your kid, wouldn't you be like jumping up and down, providing a DNA test to any television show that will ask to prove that that actually is your son? The guy that's now worth $1 billion? Here's a guy that grew up in a single-parent household, had a lot of odds stacked against him, didn't have any clear-cut, direct example of fatherhood, and in an audience that probably would love to find anything about him to attack. One of them would be, well, you know what? He's not a good family man. And your attack on him is that he is overly too protective of his family, overly too involved with his family, overly too protective of his son. And a guy that grew up with no roadmap on fatherhood is, in fact, his social media profile picture was him with his 3 kids in the back of the car all smiling. The face of being the center of a providing family unit And that's what we're now going to utilize to attack him because we don't have anything else to try to bring him down. I understand why the Lakers took Bronny James. Is he going to be a great player in the NBA? Probably not. How many players that have been taken 55th in the last 20 drafts turned out to be great players in the NBA? Probably not many. Is it a flyer and is it a PR stunt? Maybe. But it's a PR stunt by a guy that has earned himself the right and the benefit of the doubt to be able to utilize his own power and his own authority within a franchise to try to once again provide for his kids. I think it's kind of cool. And I commend him for it. And people that don't, I would ask them to say, is it because you have a problem with what took place, or is it because you have a problem with the guy itself? Because you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody. Name one of your buddies from high school. First name only, Jimmy. Name a buddy from high school.
Colin.
I don't know what Colin does for a living, but I guarantee you Colin works with somebody at his business or his company who is there because they have a family member in some way, shape, or form that knew somebody at the business itself. Or somebody that works there that they got the job because they're one of their parents or their sibling or a high school coach or whatever knew somebody at that place that put in a good word for them and made a phone call and said, hey, can you do me a solid and interview this kid and get him a job? It happens all the time. All the time. And 9 times that, and in addition to that, 9 out of 10 people that are complaining about it are the same ones that would love for that opportunity. It's a resentment because you would love for that opportunity to be there for your kid as well. What happened with that situation is in no way, shape, or form unique to professional sports. The Lakers themselves are owned by a group of people who got it because their father left them the business, right?
Yeah.
Now, as for Team USA, and Tyrese Halliburton is going to be interesting because here's a guy that, and this is what's true, Jimmy, for a lot of the guys on this team. Halliburton probably is in a good situation because he is a facilitator, I think, in mindset first before score. And he's not going to need to score in that group, right? So it may be a big advantage for him.
Yeah, we were discussing this a little bit during the break as well. What Steve Kerr and his staff, which is, a relatively solid staff for Team USA, Steve Kerr, Mark Few, Tyronn Lue, Eric Spoelstra, what strings they decide to pull in terms of minutes allotted to the team, in terms of your starters. The more I look at it, and all we have to go off of right now is the clips that USA Basketball sends out and the highlight packages there, maybe some practice footage here and there. We'll get more in the next couple of days as Team USA gets set with their USA Basketball Showcase. The first one coming up on Wednesday when they take on Canada in Las Vegas. That's currently where Team USA is for training camp. I don't know what type of role or expectations will be with Tyrese Halliburton. The more I look at it, how much is a minutes load on a guy like LeBron James at 39 who hasn't played in the Olympics since his last gold medal in 2012 for a number of different factors there. But LeBron is a player in terms of the unselfishness of his game that we talked about, not one-for-one comparisons, but the arguments and the frustration that we were putting on Tyrese Halliburton at times in the postseason of be more selfish. Don't worry about always setting up your teammates. Be aggressive in crunch time. Those are all arguments that were at one point in time thrown at LeBron. And I bring that up because in that same way that Tyrese Halliburton is an unselfish basketball player that is as true of a point guard as you would want as a facilitator. And he's a great scorer, and we know his long-range shot is there too, but he appears to be a high-level pass-first point guard. You would think, oh, that's your starting point guard. Let's roll with it. But because of what LeBron James can still do, I'm curious if he becomes a point forward for this roster. If your starting lineup features LeBron being the one that's bringing the ball up as your primary ball handler, setting up others, or if they go more a traditional look at that spot, in which case I think Tyrese Halliburton might be your clear answer as a distributor for this team, not being asked to score, just being asked to set guys up. But if they go to my initial point, Jake, I could see it being a more positionless setup where you have guys like LeBron, who is as gifted a passer as anybody on this roster. Maybe he's point forward, and maybe he is setting up everybody, and Tyrese Halliburton is more of a second unit guy. I don't know. Where do you have expectations for him? Because for me, I've said it, he's a rising star in the league, but looking at role distribution and so much talent on this team, unless they have decided he's the facilitator, Jake, I think he's probably a second unit player for this team.
No, that's fair. No,
that's not a knock on his talent. It's just
I think
as gifted a team as you're going to see.
Yeah, I think it's known. It depends on the way. The reality is the starters, quote unquote, are almost interchangeable.
Correct.
Right? It's really, when you get into a team like Team USA that has this much talent, it's less about who's starting the game and more about who's finishing.
End it. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like late in the game.
Who's your final five for the final five of the game? Who's your closeout group?
Okay, that's an excellent question, and maybe some of that is dependent upon who I'm playing. Correct.
Sure. Situational matchups. Is there a big on the other side? Do you need more length? Do you need more floor spacing? That all factors in.
I would say late in the game, my guys on the floor would be, man, I mean, it's tough, right?
I'm going LeBron James, Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis. That'd be my final five.
Okay.
I'm putting Drew Holiday out there.
100% agree with Eddie.
With?
I'm not putting LeBron out there.
Okay.
As crazy as that sound. I don't know.
It's tough because they're so gifted.
I'm going Drew Holiday, Anthony Edwards, Bam Adebayo, Jason Tatum, and Anthony Davis.
Okay. So you're going, I mean, I know they're stretch bigs, but you're going a two big lineup.
I think Adebayo is the best. I call them sprinklers. You ever see the sprinklers? There's two kinds of sprinklers in the yard. The first kind is the one that just oscillates back and forth like the big rainbow arch, right? And then there's the one that just
yeah,
and it rotates around.
One that always hits your car because it's set up too close to this curb and you're trying to dodge it.
So Adebayo is a sprinkler type player. Draymond Green is the ultimate sprinkler player, but they're the guy that when things shut down a little bit, you go into them and they either can score or then they are scattering, moving the ball around, oscillating it around, trying to find the open spot of where the ball needs to go. Adebayo is your bailout guy in that situation. Davis provides you interior strength and defense. And then you have Drew Holiday, who is able to lock down whatever player he needs to on the opposition late in the game. And you have not one but two guys that are your scoring threats, one on the wing and one in the backcourt, and Anthony Edwards and Jason Tatum. And Edwards is I need a basket, it's going to Edwards' guy. And then if he gets in trouble, he gets it to either Adebayo or Tatum to bail out, or you just go inside to Edwards for the high percentage. That's the group I'm going with.
Why?
But again, that's not necessarily those aren't the best individual talents. But to me, that's the way it works the best.
The way that I would go with my five, LeBron James is clearly your floor general. He doesn't need to go have a shot himself. He's been on plenty of all-star teams. He's been on plenty of Team USA teams where he's perfectly comfortable with setting somebody else up. You have as locked down a defender as you're going to find in the league in Anthony Edwards, and he also is a create-your-own-shot guy. In that same vein, Kevin Durant, still at age 35, which is crazy to say.
Even though he's hurt right now?
Is hurt right now. That's fair, but I'm going off of just the roster where it is and assuming that he's available come a month from now or 4 weeks from now. He is still the ultimate cheat code of being able to create your own shot from any spot on the floor. If somebody gets in trouble, you have Steph Curry, the greatest three-point shooter of all time.
It's hard to say Curry wouldn't be on the floor, right?
And then I'm willing to hear an argument for Bam because he does fit in there, but I would say Anthony Davis, just because he is still a do-it-all big that can stretch the floor at a moment's notice and give you space or give you interior presence if you need it.
Now, what's fascinating about that entire conversation is we didn't mention Kawhi Leonard.
We didn't.
Who's as good as any of them.
Mm-hmm. There's going to be names left out because how gifted this team is.
such a perfect microcosm of Kawhi Leonard's career right there just happened, right?
Yeah. And poor Devin Booker. I didn't even give him a thought. I was like, oh, that's right. Devin Booker's out there. He's a very talented player, but I didn't think about him once in terms of my setup for a starting five or a closing five, if you will.
Booker seems to me like in this situation, agreed, very good player. But in this situation, Booker definitely feels like the guy that is, and to watch, he'll probably be their leading scorer
Right,
in the tournament, right? In the whole thing.
He'll
But
drop
he
30
feels
tomorrow.
like the most situational guy of all of them.
We'll drop 30 tomorrow against Canada. Or Wednesday against Canada.
Now, the better question is this. When it lists home state and hometown for each respective player, there are 2 states that have 2 players represented. Can you name the 2 states? By hometown.
I've glanced at half, so California's one, right?
That is correct.
But I didn't see the other one.
California has Drew Holiday and Kawhi Leonard. Both are natives of or listed hometown of Los Angeles, California. The other would be North Carolina, Bam Adebayo and Steph Curry. Both listed as North Carolina.
It's going to be fun.
Adebayo is a really good player.
Yeah.
You don't hear a lot about him, but he's a very, very – I mean, I'm glad that he's on there because he is a very, very good piece for Miami.
And you've heard about him if you followed different USA basketball stuff the last 4 years or so. Like, he has been a piece, to your point, that is easily insertable into a lineup, plays his role well, is a very talented big. And what you mentioned about Miami is true. He's one of the heartbeats of that team. You remove Jimmy Butler, which very well might happen at some point this season or next when he's a free agent. That's the type of setup that you're looking at as Bam as the face of that franchise.
Now, none of these players could have been a Cincinnati Red during the 80s or the 70s or 80s. Do you know why?
I don't. I'll leave that for the resident Reds fan. Perhaps he can.
Eddie, do you know
bail us
why?
out there.
I don't know if this is still the case with the Cincinnati Reds. I believe it's not still the case. Every player on Team USA has facial hair.
Oh, yeah. No, he couldn't be a member of the Yankees.
That's the
They
Yankees.
still do that.
The Yankees also do that?
They still do that, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was definitely the case with the Reds, and the urban legend was forever that rule came about because they had a player in their minor league system that was smoking a cigar and lit his beard on fire accidentally and got scars on his chin, and that player was Fidel Castro. That was an urban legend for a very long time. I don't know if that's actually the case, but I do believe that Fidel Castro's beard was to cover some sort of scarring.
You can go mustache with the Yankees. You can go mustache, but you can't have
that's
the
facial
full-on
hair.
Beard. So I guess it's just with the beards, but you can go stash.
Yeah, because
Stash is
didn't Thurman Munson had a stash, didn't he? When did they come about? When did the Yankees come about with their?
It was a Steinbrenner.
Mattingly had a stash, didn't he?
Yeah, it was a Steinbrenner thing. I think sometime in the 70s, late 70s, I think. But it still stands to this day. Like that's often the joke whenever New York makes a move in the offseason or at the deadline. If it's a guy with a beard, that happened with Alex Verdugo with the Red Sox. He had full on beard, and then he had to go clean cut with it because you can keep a stash if you want, otherwise babyface.
Why do you think they never traded for Charlie Blackmon?
By the way, this from our buddy Phil Sanchez, who, of course, Wish TV anchor. My biggest issue is how other guys who are better than Bronny could have used the opportunity more than him and were passed up. I don't disagree, but again, it's 55. It's non-guaranteed money, right, at 55. And when you get to that point in the draft, you are better off, to be honest with you, going in as an undrafted free agent and being able to select the best opportunity for you than to actually be drafted into a situation where you're pigeonholed. That's my thing. I mean, yes, if he had been drafted 27th, I totally agree. But when you're talking about the 55th player in the draft, if you are in the mix as a possibility being considered to be drafted 55th overall, then you are absolutely on the radar where you have an opportunity to sign as an undrafted free agent somewhere and get yourself a better situation. And most players would tell you. It's like Trace Jackson Davis.
Yep.
Trace Jackson Davis, when he knew that he wasn't going to go in the first round, told teams, do not select me in the second round because I don't want to play there unless it is a handful of teams, which included Golden State, because he had already talked to Golden State ahead of time, and he knew that was the best situation for him, which is where he was going to sign regardless. But
you're 2 steps away from undrafted free agency. You're a mile away from the lottery if you're at that point in the draft. Like It's not a fair comparison.
Any player that the Lakers bypassed to take Bronny at 55 has had an opportunity with a team. And yeah, sure, they didn't get to hear their name called. I get that, and I'm not poo-pooing that. But it's not like they missed their opportunity to make an NBA roster. I mean, Summer League's getting ready to start, and 75% of those guys never heard their name called. And those that did hear their name called, 56th, 57th, whatever it might be, 55th, have as good a chance of making the roster as those that didn't hear their name. Pato Award about 33 minutes from now. What is today?
It's Monday.
Thank you. Today's the 8th of July, correct?
That is correct. See, I'm paying attention.
Anybody know what happened 23 years ago today? I got up very early in the morning with Will Higgins and Mike Byron They didn't wake up with me. We convened, like we got together very early in the morning. And it was a gorgeous day, looked kind of like today. I think it was a Saturday, if my memory serves me correct. And we drove downtown along with probably, I'm going to guess, there were 500, 750 people that did the same, scattered throughout. Some of them were dressed in Elvis jumpsuits, which was interesting, and they were protesting, which was kind of weird. And we all sat there with our disposable cameras. I had a disposable camera in which I was able to take, I think, 8 pictures, and the first of the 8 is like cocked to it is not centered because I jumped unexpectedly when taking the first photo 23 years ago today. Either of you gentlemen like to guess? No Googling, please.
I know this is wrong, but I did Google. But I know this is wrong because it doesn't fit the context clues you gave there. You were, for some reason, taking pictures of a large television screen when Venus Williams won her 3rd career Grand Slam at Wimbledon.
That's good. I mean, that's not factually incorrect, but that's not the event I'm talking about. Eddie Garrison, do you have a guess? Please, no Googling.
I have no guesses.
I wonder if anybody else besides myself, I don't even know how that I was like, wait a minute, July 8th. And then I looked it up to confirm, and I'm like, yeah, I was right. You probably have to be in my age window. If you were...
Okay.
Did you look it up there?
I did. I'm not going to say anything, but okay. Would have taken me a long time. I don't know if I would have gotten there.
It made me sad. It still kind of makes me sad. Such a huge, huge, huge part of my upbringing and life. And for anybody who grew up in the 80s or the 90s in this town, massive. The implosion of Market Square Arena 23 years ago today. So we go down there and we're all lined up. We went to a parking garage that was just south of Market Square where you could see the view. And you could hear the countdown, and everybody's counting down, and everybody had their cameras ready. And when that first boom hit, I mean, I think everybody that was in downtown jumped out of their skin. It was like I did not anticipate that being that loud, and it was massive. But Market Square was such a special place because it cemented Indianapolis as a pro sports town to a large extent. It was obviously the brain vision of Dick Lugar, amongst others. But so many things happened there, from the high school basketball state championships to Ringling, Barnum and Bailey. Is that it?
Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey.
Ringling Brothers, thank you, and Barnum and Bailey Circus. I mean, I remember seeing the circus. I think the circus might have been the first event that I ever attended there. The first concert that I ever attended, Lionel Richie and Tina Turner, by the way. Obviously, it was Elvis Presley's final concert, not by design, but it turned out to be. He was supposed to go to Milwaukee after Indianapolis. He fell ill. He went back to Memphis. He did not appear publicly again, and then he passed away. So many huge events. And then, obviously, the Pacers in the 90s, the brown curtain days of the 80s, going down there, and there'd be 7,000 people down there to watch a game. And I never did eat in the restaurant, the Market Square Garden, the one restaurant that was up there. I mean, think about that, Jimmy. Did either one of you guys ever go in Market Square?
Potentially, but I would have been,
I realize you'd have been young, right?
Maybe 4. No distinct memories. Most of my Pacers memories start at Conseco.
It literally.
Well, obviously Cambridge, but Conseco at the time.
A couple of things about Market Square, and then we'll move on. But I dwell on these things, obviously. I'm a big dweller.
Do you think, by the way, people that didn't know that was going on were putting the finishing touches on their city complaints for, why are these fireworks still going on? It's July 8th. I don't know what we're doing.
7:30 in the morning. What are we doing here? Yes, probably. Can you imagine if you just were for whatever reason, if you were just driving through Indianapolis and you're on actually, I think they closed the interstate.
They would have had to, right?
I'm pretty certain they closed the interstate because nobody knew also just how what it was going to be when they imploded it. But
I got a nice look at the dust cloud. I just watched the demolition.
I mean, it was unbelievable. And there were cameras on the inside. Channel 13 had cameras inside of it when it happened. I mean, it was a pretty amazing event. But the one thing about Market Square that I think people forget, so that was in July of 2001. And I think about this a lot. At the time, it was, there was a melancholic feeling about it, and there was a lot of excitement about Gainbridge Fieldhouse, which had already opened. I mean, they'd already made the transition. But there was such a nostalgic feeling about Market Square and all of the events. I mean, literally from 1976 to 2000 for 24, and think about this, and this is even more amazing to think about. Gainbridge Fieldhouse now is, a year, 8 months shy of the same age that Market Square was when Market Square was imploded. But Market Square was clearly dated by that point because you didn't have the suites. You had the concourses were pretty narrow. But no one talks about this aspect of it. That was, as much as I hate to say it and bring it up, and I'm not trying to, but you're talking about that was 9 weeks before 9/11. And Market Square Arena was elevated where the arena itself, the playing surface, the floor surface of Market Square was 4 stories above Market Street, and you drove underneath the arena. Now, they had the roads closed when events were going on. You couldn't pass underneath it, but you could any other time. Can you imagine? There's no way, Jimmy, zero chance, no way in the post-9/11 era, even if you put up little barricades with 2 cop cars with lights flashing at Market and Delaware, or Market in Alabama and Market and whatever it is on the other side. I mean, even if you had it roped off, there is no way that they would have had events with 17,000 people in it in an arena that's hovering over a passable city street.
Yeah, no chance.
9 weeks after 9/11.
No chance.
They would have had to have gotten rid of it anyway. But it was what's interesting about it is for a building that was imploded because of the fact that it became archaic, architecturally speaking, I think it was still very advanced looking. It just looked modern. You look at it, it just was a cool looking building. It was like this saucer, but the fact that it was supported by parking garages, 4 corners of parking garages that elevated it up above the city street, and then you'd come down the ramps and you'd go out and like there's City Market right there. And I mean, it just was, it was magical. And maybe some of that is me romanticizing it in my mind because it was such a special place for so many people. My high school graduation was at Market Square Arena. Think about that. I mean, it was all kinds of events took place there. Hey, Jake, I'm assuming those were disposable cameras that were inside Market Square when it was imploded. Yes, that would absolutely be the case. I'm telling you, like people definitely remember it.
Your point about the saucer shape, as I look closer at some of these, news coverage clips of the demolition of it and just seeing all the aerial shots, the saucer itself has some reminiscence to it of current Allegiant Stadium out in Vegas. I mean, I know that's entirely blacked out in terms of the window design, so it really does look like a spaceship, but that whole spherical look, I see the whole saucer aspect of it.
It looked like, okay, do you know those little models that you can buy of old stadiums?
Yeah.
There's one of Market Square.
Not the ones that you have to put together, the ones that are already made.
Correct.
Yeah,
They're like little plaster things.
Yes.
There's one of Market Square, and the top of it, you can it swivels off. The little white top of it swivels off so that you can put like paper clips or whatever in it. And that's kind of what the arena looked like. The top of Market Square Arena looked like this little oscillating thing that you could swivel off if you wanted to. But there were just so many cool events that took place. And then as I've talked about a million times, and if you guys look at the photos, you can see it, but the best part of Market Square Arena, for guys my age, and girls, but for guys my age, the best part about Market Square Arena was I can't tell you, I can still smell and feel the chilled air on the east side of Market Square Arena on the bus ramp that sat on the east side of Market Square Arena as you were facing Market Street going east. If you drove up, there was a ramp that you drove up, and it would have been a 3-story high ramp, and then there was a flat surface, and that's where the visiting team bus would park. And you could stand, the parking garage there was a barricade there, but you could stand right next to the bus, right there by the buses, and wait as the visiting team would come and load up. I mean, think about that today. Like, you see all the entrance videos of teams. They're always like, they park in the bowels of an arena, and then they walk down like, cool lit hallways that have TV cameras everywhere, and they're carrying their bag or whatever. They literally would walk out of this bus, and it would be freezing cold outside. And the bus is running to keep it warm, and you could smell the diesel fuel burning. And there's myself and 100 other kids from around Indianapolis, from Decatur Township and Pike Township and IPS and Washington Township, and we're all standing there hoping to get a pair of shoes flung to us by Roy Henson, as I mentioned once gave me a pair of shoes, or Gerald Wilkins, or trying to get a quick glimpse or an autograph of, Trent Tucker, whoever it might be. And that was the magic of Market. It was awesome. Standing there, seeing the bus. I know now I'm like down a rabbit hole of memory lane, but I'm telling you, there are people listening that are like, amen, brother. Market Square was where it's at. There's a reason the shop sells one of their best-selling T-shirts is just a Market Square Arena logo T-shirt. But I want to know if anybody ate in that. Somebody send me a text if you ever ate in Market Square Gardens. They had the neon sign with the one window. It was a restaurant that was in the arena, and like one window. Didn't have outdoor seating where you could like look over. Just a restaurant in the arena with one window, I think, and a neon sign. And my entire life goal as a kid was to someday be able to eat dinner in that restaurant. Never did make it. Okay,
so you never consumed food there. Can you tell me what they offered?
Okay.
Like, what are we talking about?
Excellent question, Jimmy. I do have, still right now, I know exactly where it is. I was cleaning out during the purge.
Yes.
Right?
For those that don't know, the Jake Query purge of items from, when was this again?
Post-heart attack. I had, it was during COVID anyway, so everybody was home, but I cleaned out 60% of my possessions because I thought, okay, so if I do die, then somebody's going to have to go through all this crap. So I just did it for them. But one of the things that I found was a menu from a Pacer game against the Washington Bullets in 1987. And the menu is in the shape of the Pacer P, and then it opens up, and it has the menu items, and it's like hot dog, popcorn. A beer was $3.50. Hot dogs were, I think, $1.75. But it doesn't have the Market Square Gardens menu. This was just the like Aramark, concession menus. Must have been for a suite. And the suites, by the way, if you were a Pacers quote-unquote suite holder back at Market Square, you just got a little section of a box with four folding seats on the floor surface or in the lower surface. The best. Now I'm all nostalgic for Market Square. Maybe we should come back with a little Tina Turner and Lionel Richie, because that was the first concert I ever saw there. Glory days. I always wanted to see that. Then the lights would come on after the concert at Market Square. They would turn the lights on at the end of the concert. And think about this, how archaic is this? You were allowed to smoke in Market Square. So the lights would come on at the end of the concert, and literally, now you think it was hazy out on the 4th of July when you're like at 1 o'clock in the morning after everybody's done all the fireworks? There was, and I remember also when I was at the Lionel Richie Tina Turner concert, I'm like, why does it smell like burnt rope in here? Who's burning rope? Did somebody bring in a skunk? What's going on? And then they turn the lights on at the end of the show, and the top third of Market Square Arena was like a cumulus cloud. Just a cumulus cloud. John at 239-1070. John,
hey,
what's going on?
Hey, how you doing, buddy? Hey,
I'm good, John.
And I love the show, man, because it's local and it's great.
I appreciate that. Have you called the show before, John?
Just once back in the day.
You sound like a nice fella. Do you drink coffee?
One cup in the morning. That's it.
You haven't had it today? You sound caffeinated.
I am a high energy guy.
I like that, John. Hi, John. You are the director of energy for the Aquarium Company. How's that?
I love it. I work on forklifts for a living, so I have to keep my energy.
All right. What's going on about MSA?
the viewpoint of the fans is what I like the best. When you sit in the chairs and you stood up, you could almost feel like if you fell forward,
No doubt.
you would all the way to the bottom.
It was a steep climb, man. It was a steep climb, right?
It was, and it held less people, which of course is, and nowadays you have to more money, more tickets, so on and so forth. But you sit on the third level of Gamebridge, and you can just barely see the numbers on the jerseys.
Of course, now they got the huge video board, right, John? That's the thing that's weird now, and I appreciate it. We're up against it here, but everybody stick around because we're going to get to you on the other side. Now, of course, you go to the game, you find yourself tempted to just simply watch it on the video board as opposed to watching the floor. It's a totally different experience, no question about it. But a lot of memories flooding in. We'll get to that, and then Pato Award in 12 minutes. Tina Turner opened for Lionel Richie, first concert I attended at Market Square, and I just remember I was like, what in the world just happened? I mean, like, I was like 10. She was a lot like our last caller, high energy. I'll say that when she came out. Rick joins us on the show. We're talking about the fact Market Square went kaput 23 years ago today. Hi, Rick.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm okay, Rick. How about yourself?
Oh, good. I've been dying to do this, talk to somebody. All my experiences with Market Square, and some of them are real simple, but anyway, one of them is I got to sit right next to the San Diego Chicken. And,
Hold on.
yeah, I mean it's not a big deal. It was like 1983.
Now you're talking about the guy that played the chicken, or like the chicken was sitting there next to you?
No, the actual chicken. I didn't even know it, but he was appearing there against with the Pistons. And I just went up to the in general, on the 6th floor where you buy your tickets.
Yeah.
I said, hey, I'll just take your best seats available. And I didn't realize it, but I didn't even know that we had gotten the very front row seats. And guess how much they were?
Oh, probably. This is what year?
1983 or 2.
$12.
No, a little more, but like $20.
Yeah, totally believe it.
I had no idea I was sitting on the front row.
Now,
anyway, then there was my buddy, me, and then there was the San Diego Chicken right next to me.
Was he a man of few words?
Huh?
Was he a man of few words?
Yeah. He said, we saw how much money you make. He goes, chicken feed. Stuff like that. Then me and my buddies, I'm from Elwood, Indiana. And we would go down and watch a Pacer game. This is like 1979, and the Philadelphia 76ers were there. Well, they were really beating our butts. So we walked down to where the locker rooms were. Back then, there was one cop that guarded, your access to get down to the locker rooms. And he was easy to get by. We got down there. There was absolutely nobody there except the TV4 channel TV truck, okay? And they thought it was so funny that me and my buddies snuck down there that one of my buddies got to watch the rest of the game in the TV truck.
I totally believe it, man.
We just watched the last 5 minutes. All of a sudden, the game ends, and I'm looking down that thing, and here comes Daryl Dawkins and all the 76ers just right through to their locker room. And we were the only ones back there.
I mean, Rick, it was a totally different era. I appreciate it. We got to get the Pato Award. It was a totally different era, Rick, and I totally appreciate it. I'm like you, man. I could sit and have a PBR with you and talk about it all day because it was just totally different, man. It was like the city's playground, Market Square Arena, the city's playground. No matter what it was, you went down there, and it was just all about everybody having fun, and it was totally different environment. And you got to sit next to the San Diego Chicken and then meet Chocolate Thunder. I mean, what better is there, right? Pato Award, by the way, yesterday's winner at Mid-Ohio joins us next. That's how it sounded yesterday. Mark Janes with the final call, Michael Young with the pit call. I was in the keyhole for yesterday. Pato Awards win his second of the season in the NTT IndyCar Series, and now on to Iowa, where he won in 2022. He joins us now on the Express Pro Tire and Auto Guest Line, driver of car number 5 for Arrow McLaren. Pato Award joining us. Pato, first, congratulations. It's got to be kind of cool to listen back to that, right?
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it was. We were definitely sweating there in the end. But no, I mean, very, very well earned victory. I think we can all feel very proud of what we did yesterday. And yeah, hats off to the team, Arrow McLaren, giving me a really great strategy, great in the pits, awesome race car all weekend where we could really execute and capitalize on a great opportunity we got.
So let's go to that strategy. And for those that are unfamiliar with it, you know, you did what, at least from the outside, from those of us that are not in the car, what we call the undercut, where you're running with Pelot. You know, as a matter of fact, you were closing in on Pelot, but you're running second. And then you pit before Alex Pelot. So you pit, you get done with your pit stop, you come out, and then you force Pelot to have to pit and race himself back out. And as we heard, you were able to pass him when he came out of the pits. Is that kind of a strategy in terms of that quote-unquote undercut discussed back and forth when you're in the car, or do they basically just say to you, this is when we're coming in and we don't know when he's going to or not?
No, I mean, they called it. You know, I had other things to worry about with the inside of the car, and all I had to do was just basically maximize my time on in laps, out laps, and, you know, in the pit stop sequence, and that's ultimately what gave us that opportunity.
The hybrid engine, there was a lot of talk about it going into the weekend, Pato Award, and, man, that was a fast race. First off, I should thank all you guys because I wanted to get back last night for a concert, and I got back in time because that race was blistering fast, and the engine seemed to hold up. But I'm curious, from a driver's standpoint, what felt different?
You know, what I've been telling everybody is that now you have to worry about both car balance and all the options that you have with the regen, deploy, which obviously is the new hybrid system, that has a lot of influence in the balance of the car, into the entry of the corners, on the exits. Like it's more than just some extra out of the corners in terms of performance. Like it really does affect how the car is behaving. So that's got to be the biggest challenge, I would say. Is just really now you've got two things that you got to worry about. You know, not to say that the first one was already hard enough, and that just puts a lot of emphasis in, you know, practice 1, practice 2 to really kind of hone in on two very different things, but that ultimately have to work together if you want to maximize.
Pato Award is our guest. He's on the Express Pro Tire and Auto Guest Line. Pato, during the race, I was in the keyhole. That's turn 2 to you as the driver. And next to me was a huge tent that was papaya orange. There were a bunch of people from Illinois. They were all wearing Arrow stuff. They all had on Pato number 5 jerseys and hats. And I've sensed this, and I'm curious if you have. Tony Kanaan works for the team that you drive for now. And Tony Kanaan became a fan favorite in Indianapolis because he knocked on the door and flirted with so many wins here before finally getting himself an Indianapolis 500-mile win. And just his spirit of it made him so popular. And I feel like Pato Award is the new Tony Kanaan, that fans have embraced your ability to embrace this race and also at the same time feel the heartache of it that they now feel with you. Do you feel that growth in terms of your connection with fans at Indianapolis?
I absolutely have, and I would say this year specifically after the Indy 500, during the month of May, but after the race, it was, I didn't win the race. I was very close to winning the race. We were 2 corners short, but they made me feel like I had won the race. And, I would say that I don't know how to explain it, to be fairly honest with you. You know, like I've always put so much passion into what racing is, into my career, into my journey. And, it's always great to have people that kind of, want to be part of it, whether it's good or bad, and I feel like all of my fans have always, really embraced every situation that I've, kind of got myself into, and that's very special. I don't think a lot of people can say that, and for me, it feels very fulfilling, and obviously very grateful to have such a great group of people that are behind me here at the team, but also, when we go to different tracks, different markets, there is so many people, and every year it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It is an awesome feeling to see all the 5 jerseys walking around, and I feel like people kind of like hop on the roller coaster rather than just kind of watch from afar in a way.
Pato, the emotion of it all, I think, is really what magnified the support and love sent your way, because anytime it's a high caliber sporting event, but especially the greatest spectacle in racing, when that raw emotion is right there, people gravitate towards that. They can appreciate the human element of that. How long, or have you yet, flushed that completely? I mean, obviously you get to win at Mid-Ohio. You're third in the point standings. You're right there in the chase as the season goes on. But have you yet moved on from the 500? And if you have, how did you go about flushing that and moving on?
I have. I mean, it's going to sting until you win one, but ultimately, we've got so many races ahead of us, and truly, we're in a position right now where we should, no matter how bittersweet some of those will be, it's always part of the process. And I feel like once we actually get all of them, which I know we will, then you're going to really wish that you enjoyed the journey getting there, because that's ultimately what's going to make it so, so, so special.
Pato, in terms of your journey, when you first came, I remember the first year that you came here, and I think a lot of people forget this. I don't know if you probably haven't, but, you failed to qualify the first year. Then you had the opportunity, I think it was with Red Bull, to go over and try into a Formula One feeder system. If my wording is incorrect, correct me. But the thought for Pato O'Ward when you first kind of got your feet underneath you in IndyCar is that you were eventually going to inevitably be a Formula One guy. And I think your eyes were on that, but you've been so competitive and so now beloved in this series. Has that changed at all?
Man, I mean, Indianapolis is home to me now. This is, just being in the city. I purposefully want to spend more time here because this is what home feels like for me. Like, I don't know really what to say much more than that. I really love where I'm at, and I love the IndyCar series. I love how competitive it is, and whether sometimes you want to punch a hole through the wall because things just don't go your way. It is really special, and I know so many people would give an arm and a leg to be in my position, and I'm so grateful that I am here right now, and celebrating a wonderful win yesterday, and been a very a very hard fought journey. Along with a great group of people here at our McLaren, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. So we're going to continue pushing, and we'll see where it takes us.
What did you do to celebrate the win?
I flew home. I had dinner at Verde. It's my favorite Mexican restaurant here in Indy. And then I got home, showered, and then I watched the race, and then I went to bed.
That's a heck of a celebration, I guess, right? By the way, speaking of which, and for those that don't know, Pato O'Ward, born in Monterrey, Mexico. You went to high school in San Antonio, correct?
Yes, correct.
Are you a Spurs fan at all?
I don't watch basketball, to be honest. I know we've got the Pacers here in Indy. I know the Spurs are in San Antonio, but
you're a racer, right? I mean,
Yeah, I don't want to lie about it and be like, yeah, I watch every single game and I really follow it. I truly don't.
Well, okay, so I want to know this though: if you were born in Monterey, and look, they have great Mexican restaurants and Tex-Mex food in San Antonio. So your dish of choice is what? Like when you go to a Mexican restaurant, you're ordering what?
Tacos al pastor or carne asada.
Wow, that's even with
or mole is really good as well. Like some tamale moles, like chicken. Oh, so good.
Are you a good cook?
Not like restaurant level, but I can do a really good steak. I can do simple stuff like chicken, steak, fish. I can do like nice roasted vegetables. I can do obviously all my breakfasts. I always have to make them in the morning. I can do smoothies. So I can do all the simple, healthy stuff. I can't get creative with like, ooh, let me make you a sushi roll, or let me make
That's
you
still listen. That's
yeah.
pretty impressive, though. I mean, the list you just rattled off there is pretty impressive, Pato Award.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I have to say, like it's at least I say it's tasty. I don't know.
Hey, Pato, a year ago, and I think the narrative has been, or it seemed at least by observation, that you worked really well with and were, I think, pretty good buddies with Felix Rosenquist. I assume you still are. I mean, obviously you're still in the same series, but
he's, I would say, one of my best friends, like for sure. He's we're not blood related, but he and his now soon to be wife, current fiance, are like family to me, my sister, my brother-in-law, my parents. Like we've basically like adopted them, and then they've adopted me back.
which is pretty cool, and obviously that bond starts with being teammates in racing. And then since then, and we had, Alexander Rossi on last week, and obviously within the team of Arrow McLaren, which is a power team, no question about it. They deliver you a win. But you've had the situation with David Malukas was going to be your teammate. He gets hurt. Teo Porcher fills in, does a good job. Now Nolan Siegel is there. And now we know that Christian Lundgaard will be joining the team next year, and Alexander Rossi is on his way out. Is that difficult, just the camaraderie to try to build, and also the loss of a teammate in a guy like Rosenquist? Has that been a challenge?
I mean, you always hate to see your buddies go, right? Because there is a lot of time that you have to put energy and sacrifice. It's basically a second family, to be honest. Like I sometimes see everybody in the team more than how I see like my grandparents and my parents. So it really is a second family. But ultimately, what I care about is somebody to join the team and to be willing to work together. And I feel very fortunate to have had teammates that work alongside me, that want to help me when I struggle. I help them when they struggle. And we want to make sure that all three cars are strong. Like I've always been an open playbook, and that's what's going to make a team strong. Like I need my teammates to be strong in order to take points away from the other guys. Like I don't want to be the only one battling up there. So I've always been from the mindset like we all need to be up there.
We're getting ready now to go to Iowa, where Pato Award, yesterday's winner at Mid-Ohio, won, as I mentioned, in 2022. That is a track where you never get open space. It is literally a traffic jam the entire time in that bull ring in Iowa. Pato, after the Indianapolis 500, we talked to Joseph Newgarden. And Newgarden was extremely complimentary of, I asked him about the move to go to the outside in turn 3, which was right below me. And I was stunned when he popped to the outside that he held it. I thought he was trying to do like an up and under move. And he said, Pato Award's one of the few guys I can do that with because I knew I could trust him. And I knew he was going to be clean. And Newgarden was very praiseworthy of you by saying, the win was almost that much more because I knew that I was going against a guy that was going to race me hard but race me clean and be a true sportsman in it. You're going to have to see that kind of a situation in Iowa, but were you aware of Newgarden's sentiments after that win for him?
Yeah, he texted me, and honestly, we've had many duels. Indy was definitely not the first one, and that's what you hope for when you're going 230 miles an hour. Like you need to have that when going up against somebody. And I wish I could say that about everybody, but you can't. There's only a few that you can truly trust like that. And obviously it makes the show better. It makes the outcome for everybody better. And, we got to keep pushing for ours. We've been looking for that for quite some time now. And, it's.
When I go to a track, Pato, a lot of times I don't remember what happened the year before and when I'm calling the race until I get to the track and I see it, and then like everything kind of comes back to me. When you're running in a race, we'll use Indy as an example, but 3 years in a row, you're right there at the end. One time, I mean, you could say in turn one, I don't know if you'd say that you were passive, which way you want to say it with Erickson. Then the next year you get aggressive, and then this year Newgard makes that pass. Does the past weigh into the decisions that you're able to make in that quick an instinct?
I mean, I'd much rather finish the race than finish in the wall. But it obviously stings whenever you've been close, not just once, but twice, and I would say 3 times. Sadly, in one of them, I was up against somebody that I trusted too much with how much room he was going to give me, and obviously I ended up getting bitten. But it's a constant battle that you have to do, and sometimes you'll get it wrong, sometimes you'll get it right.
Pato, you mentioned your favorite Mexican restaurant earlier. Whenever I go to a place like Verde, like La Hacienda, I get scared and I stick with what I know I like, which is usually enchiladas verdes or chips and queso. I realize that's probably bland, but if I was to branch out and broaden my palate, what should I get the next time I go to a Mexican restaurant?
Carne asada, or go to Verde and get the ribeye tacos. They're really good.
Okay.
What's that first one you said?
Carne asada.
Now, do we have to kind of roll the R like that? I'm not bad at rolling the R. Carne
Basically,
asada.
a big,
Is that okay?
like a hot plate with like a nice juicy steak.
Ooh.
You've got some like cactus and cheese on the side, and then you got tortillas on the side to make tacos.
I just looked it up. Looks very good.
There you
All
go.
right.
Well, Pato, we will see you in Iowa. Not 1 but 2 races in Iowa for you to try to get not 1 but 2 wins and improve upon that third place position in terms of the points championship, but you're right there. And again, I want to emphasize again, because it's the first time we've had a chance to talk to you since Indy. I loved the emotion, and Pato, the people of this city loved that emotion, and they loved the fact that what we saw before our very eyes, I thought, was the next fan favorite at IMS. And I've heard some loud roars at that place, but I can only imagine what it'll be when you do get the Borg Warner and win at Indy. A lot of work between now and then, but I certainly appreciate the time today.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right, Pato O'Ward, again, driver of the number 5 machine for Aero McLaren Racing. And I'm telling you, like, I do think that, I mean, I wasn't just saying it, obviously. I think people listening know that guy's fan favorite and for a reason, right?
I mean, he won me over that day. Like, not to say that I wasn't a fan of his before, but, like, the emotion of sport gravitates a lot of people towards it, and I found myself pulling for him. And then when he comes up short, it's like, man, like I want this guy to make good. Like I would love to see him be on the Borg Warner Trophy someday. And we mentioned it. He's third in points in the series. Like there's a path for him. I want to see how the rest of the season goes on. But you think ultimately, and just his state of mind with all that, Jake, of being as open about the fact that he wants to enjoy the journey to get there, and perhaps one day he will, I think is enough to rally around a large portion of the fan base that, as you mentioned, we've seen it before with the likes of Tony Kanaan.
Somebody just asked, by the way, and I apologize that I didn't I didn't see it until after we were done there. What is Pato's daily driver car? Good question. I would assume it's either a McLaren, although probably some sort of a Chevrolet. Typically, that's, although some of the guys have like sporting car deals where they might have something that they drive in that regard as well. But I like the fact, too, I think the biggest thing to come out of that is this, and that is he is a guy for certain that we wondered for a long time whether Pato O'Ward was strictly had eyes on F1. And you tell me, Jimmy, but that sounded to me like a guy that is that now that he's had the taste of the 500 and of IndyCar is perfectly happy being here.
I would agree with that. And that's great because for the sport, regardless of how serious or not the idea of a rivalry or a viewership war, to have young, talented drivers that want to be a part of this series, that's a win. It's a massive win.
By the way, Bill Benner sent me a text. I love Bill Benner. And I'm thrilled to say, we can say this now, Bill Benner's brother, David, who was, of course, a longtime writer at the Indianapolis Star and then became the media relations director for the Pacers. David Benner was a huge dog lover, had dogs of his own. And in David's memory, I'm very flattered, honored to say that I was one of several people that made contributions for ICANN, which is the Canine Assistance Network, where they take and train dogs to help out with people in, as service dogs. And we actually, Mark Robinson, who used to be in public relations for Firestone and worked with IndyCar and is a longtime motorsports journalist, also had worked at the newspaper with David Benner. Mark put this all together, and a number of us made contribution to be able to facilitate and fund for a dog in David Benner's honor. Benny is the name of the dog, a golden retriever that just was put into the program for ICANN recently, and Benny is going to graduate through the program and then make somebody's life better, as David, of course, always did. I thought it was fitting that Mark Robinson, once Benny was selected and named, we got the information on that on the day of the Dave Matthews concert, because David Benner, for all of his strong suits, had the one drawback of the fact that he was a big Dave Matthews fan, but we all have our weakness. Bill Benner, though, his brother, just sent me a text saying, I'm enjoying the conversation about Market Square. I covered the very first and the very last Pacers games at Market Square. Now, that's pretty cool.
That is neat.
The last game, I know the last shot ever made at Market Square was by, I think, Slick Leonard. I think Slick went out and they allowed him to take a ceremonial shot, which was the final shot there. But the last team I believe the Pacers played was the Utah Jazz at Market Square. I could be wrong in that, and I think Jeff Foster hit the final shot, but I could be wrong in that as well. I'm going off memory. We're going to jostle things around a little bit because Dwight Freeney is going to join us in studio, which means Jimmy's plays of the day are going to be a little early, but they're upcoming.
Today's plays of the day, just focusing on Major League Baseball. Straight money line selections throughout. We'll take the Minnesota Twins to win the money line on the road against the Chicago White Sox. A little bit later tonight, we'll take the Atlanta Braves to win outright over the Arizona Diamondbacks. Last one for you, give me the Cincinnati Reds on the money line as they host the Colorado Rockies. Eddie, any selections for you?
Nope.
Those are your plays of the day.
That's it?
That's all we got. Copa America and the Euros are into their semifinal rounds. Those will take place tomorrow. So we'll just have one round of soccer betting this week, and then a look ahead on Friday to the championship matches in both Copa America and the Euros that take place next weekend, or this weekend, rather. That's all we got, just baseball.
Can you guys name every player from the Indianapolis Colts that's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
No.
How about this?
Can you?
Probably close. There are 12. Now, I'm including people just in general that are connected to the Indianapolis Colts. Matter of fact, it would take you probably it's kind of convoluted to get to the site that lists them. Do you see it listing by team?
I just went to Pro Football Hall of Fame, their website, and it has gotten convoluted already.
If you go to where it says Hall of Famers and then it says by team, then you got to go down and you got to select Colts. I mean, I can tell you, I'm looking at it right now, and I can see 3 of them. Richard Dent is the one that most people would forget, because if you played, when you go into the Hall of Fame, it is strictly team by service, excuse me. In other words, in baseball, you go in with the team of your choice.
Right.
You select the team. You know, Wade Boggs is in his bust in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He's wearing a Tampa Bay Rays hat because he's a native of Tampa. But because you hear people all the time say, well, like Peyton Manning, when he goes in, was he going to go in as a Colt or a Bronco?
Right.
Well, literally, it's just the bust of the face, and then underneath it just lists teams of service, and that's it. So Richard Dent's listed as it says Chicago Bears, Indianapolis Colts. I can see, because I pulled it up on the screen here, I can see in front of me Dent, Dickerson, and Dungy.
There's also a subsection of, and I'm not making this up, so Jake, I want you to view it so that you can know that I'm not just making this about my fanhoods, but in the Pro Football Hall of Fame website, when you go to teams and then team greats, that subsection where you would think it would list Colts franchise members in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it says that. It has those players, Marshall Faulk, Marvin Harrison, but it says Chiefs franchise members. So Pro Football Hall of Fame, let's get that website cleaned up a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
No, what do you mean?
It says Chiefs franchise members. But I clicked, so it's just a typo. Like somebody, I think, fell asleep at the wheel, the intern, setting up the archival nature of the website.
Okay, so you have listed before you the Colts that are in the Indianapolis Colts affiliate.
Any ties to the franchise whatsoever.
There are 12, right?
This says 21.
I'm looking at it.
This includes front office personnel, by the way, this list. It's not just players.
Well, Tony Dungy's in as a coach, right?
Yep.
Richard Dent, Eric Dickerson, Dungy, Marshall Faulk.
Yep.
Marvin Harrison, Peyton Manning, Bill Polian. Is Cornelius Bennett in? Oh, Edgerrin James, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joe Klecko?
Yes.
Did Andre Johnson get in? Is he going in with Freeney?
I think so.
So that would be one, right? Is Tom Moore in?
Is he eligible since he was still coaching?
Oh, that's a good question. He's still coaching, right? Outside of that, I couldn't tell you any others.
We are correct on Andre Johnson, by the way, being in that class.
So I'm looking at it here. The only other one that I was unfamiliar with that has ties to the Indianapolis Colts is contributor George Young.
Does it loop in Baltimore?
It does. Johnny Unitas is there.
Well,
Don Shula.
Yes.
Yes, but you can click on Indianapolis.
Right, you can
Colts.
subset it to Indianapolis.
Yes.
The section that I went to groups the entire Colts franchise, both Baltimore and
I mean, then you get into Lenny Moore and you get into a bunch of Raymond Barry.
So that's why we had different numbers than Jake, was because I went to a different subsection.
So the only one that George Young, who was a contributor and is in from an executive standpoint, was a part of the Baltimore Colts. I don't remember him. He must have come over and had some affiliation with Indianapolis at some point. But we'll break, and one of the guys that is going to join in that hall in just under a month will join us, Dwight Freeney, in studio. It is our pleasure to welcome to the program a guy that we talked to just before he found out that he was going to be a Hall of Famer as part of his work coming back to Indiana and helping out with the Indiana Donor Network and getting people involved to sign up to become an organ donor, which many of you have probably heard about the fact that I have always been grateful that my uncle, for example, was able to extend his life thanks to somebody being an organ donor, a heart donor. I myself am on the donor registry. I signed up. Very easy to do when you get your driver's license. Dwight Freeney joins us here in studio. Dwight, first off, welcome back to Indianapolis. Congratulations on the Hall of Fame.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me back.
You have, I guess, a month of being a Hall of Fame before you were officially an inductee, I guess.
Yeah.
We're going to get to all of that in a minute, but I think it's cool what you do. You know, Indianapolis, for a place where you played so many different spots, but this is a place obviously where you're known, to come back for the Indiana Donor Network for the second straight year to try to raise awareness. Clearly, this is a personal initiative for you. How did this all come about now where you have become the face of this very important movement?
You know, I just think it's a no-brainer, to be honest with you. It's finding ways to give back, and that's how, you know, as most athletes who play, you want to find ways to do that, right? And when I was contacted by them, and they told me what they had going on, and when you come here and you talk about it, and they read you statistics and stats on kind of what one person can do and save 8 lives and help 75 other people just from one person, you know, you have to think about it. You know, that person that you're gifting that organ to, you know, that's saving someone's life.
Well, and their family and their friends.
Yeah,
and all of it,
you're
right?
saving someone's life. It could be a child, it can be an adult, but you are still giving when you're no longer here. And once I found out about that and what that's all about, you know, it was an easy decision for me to be involved.
And in addition to that, this trip for you, in addition to celebrating the Hall of Fame induction, you know, I know that you're a father,
Yep.
and I think that probably when you see your own children and the possibility of people being able to give that gift, you just got, if I'm not mistaken, part of your trip back here to Indianapolis, you just got done visiting with people who have been touched by this, including kids, right? Which had to kind of, I guess, as a father, really cement this for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you see things from different lenses, you know, depending on where you are in your life. And I think when I wasn't a parent, you know, I go to a children's hospital. It hits different. It still hits. Still hits. It's still something where you hate to see anybody go through that, right? But when you actually are a parent and you go, you automatically think about your kids, and you know, you're thankful that your kids are not in that type of situation, and you sit there and sympathize even further with those parents that have to go through it. So it's really heartwarming, and you get teary-eyed.
I was going to say, was it emotional?
It becomes all of that, you know. And what I try to do is look at it from a silver lining standpoint, where, you know, it's good that they're here, because there's a lot of folks that are not here that need it, and they have the opportunity for their life to be changed forever in a positive way. And I try to keep the negative side of it out of my brain, and just stay straight positive. Like, they're going to recover. They're going to be great. They're going to get back to their normal life.
So you saw, by going and seeing today, you know, children in particular that have been touched by the donor network and being able to get that opportunity now to grow, it validates your work.
Yep.
Your work on the football field was validated, not that it needed it, but by getting the call. Take me through the process of knowing, in fact, that you're going to go into Canton, into the Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you try to prepare yourself for that moment, and no matter what preparation you have, you still get overwhelmed with emotion, and you're still surprised when you see it happen. You know, I knew I had a great career. I knew that this was definitely a possibility, but it wasn't on the forefront of my brain. It wasn't something I thought about every play or anything while it would be more brought up through the end of my career when people mention me and talk and say, hey, future Hall of Famer. And
Right.
That's when it starts to think about, yeah, you know what? He's probably right. You know, I might have a chance to get in there. And then when that process actually happens, it's you get flushed with emotion. You appreciate it. You're humbled by it.
Did you know what day they were going to be coming to you? Because it was Tony Dungy that came to your house, right?
No clue.
So you're just
no clue. After the first.
What if you wouldn't have been home? What happens then?
Well, look,
if you were out at a movie, what happens?
Listen, I have no idea, but I'll say this: they knew who to call to figure out where I was going to be. My wife knew exactly where I would be.
So your wife knew,
100%. So she had to lie to me for about a week or two,
really,
and keep this secret. And how she did that, she can't keep a secret. She can't keep anything. She's just like, she's walking around this water flying. She can't keep anything. It's just, that's in her nature. But the fact that she could keep this secret from me and not spill the beans, she did an amazing job. So, I walked into that golf course and no clue. Absolutely. All I knew was that, I'm a member at the Grove. Michael Jordan is a friend of mine's. He was in on this secret. And he said to me, hey, today I want, which was the day prior to it, but hey, I want you to dress up. I want you to dress up because I am going to have a photo shoot here. And I want some of the members to be dressed up so we can take a picture in front of the building of the Grove. That's all I knew. And in the way that, you dress at the Grove, T-shirt, shorts, no one really cares. Dress code isn't important.
And Jordans. You got to wear Jordans.
Yeah, Jordans.
Right? Yeah, of course.
Nothing. No one really cares what you wear. So I'm super, super casual. So it was kind of like, God, I got to dress up. All right. Well, for you, I'm going to do it. But
right.
And when I walked up to the door and I opened that door and I saw Coach Dungy there, I wasn't even thinking about it. Because like I said, the first time I was up and I didn't make it, I vowed to not care as much.
Right. Or not dwell on it, probably,
because I like to, one of the staples in my life, I like to keep is, hey, look, I can only worry about things I can control. Try not to worry about things that you can't control. And this happens to be something that I can't control, but it means so much to me. So therefore, it's kind of like, how do you do this? Okay, I'm going to put the blinders on. If they call me, they call me. I'm just going to go hit golf balls all day, every day. And if someone lets me know I'm in, great. Because if you're not first ballot, then it doesn't matter. As long as you get in, you get in. And that's where I was. So it could have been 5 years from now. As long as I got in, I got in. And I got in, thank God, in the second year.
Colts legend Dwight Freeney, and soon-to-be inductee into the Hall of Fame here inside of a month, is our guest. Dwight, how does one celebrate, then, getting inducted into the Hall of Fame? I'm sure you can't tell us everything, but I imagine that's as good as it gets in terms of celebration.
Yeah, I think so. You know what? I think it's all different based on the person. My celebration really hadn't stopped. It's kind of one of those things where, it's like a constant celebrating, hit the ball in the water. Well, I am a Hall of Famer. I did make the Hall of Fame this year, so I won't throw my clubs into the lake this time. It's one of those continuous good feelings, smile when things aren't really great. Oh, well, I'm being Hall of Fame anyway, so I'll be okay, type of thing. So that's really where it starts and where it's a constant.
Does it feel to some extent like a personal championship tour up until the third, and then obviously beyond that too? But is that kind of what it feels like?
I guess so, in a way. It's just one of those things that, when I talk about it, it's not just for me. It's also for everyone who helped me get there, and it means as much to them as it does to me. So, that head coach back in high school who convinced me to play football, he's having the same tour that I'm having, all those who were part of that journey. So it's really a community, let's just call it the Dwight Freeney community, that's celebrating here, not just me.
Of all of the people that have impacted your career, your life, your game,
yeah,
the one that you selected to give the speech to induct you will be Jim Irsay.
Yep.
Why Jim Irsay? And I don't mean that as a bad, but why Jim Irsay? And then secondly, because we know of his health challenges, when's the last time that you have spoken with or seen Jim Irsay?
Well, look, it starts with Jim, when it comes to the Colt and the horseshoe. And I was known, obviously, to be here, and that has been, when people talk about me, they talk about the Indianapolis Colts.
Sure. I mean, 90% of the highlights are going to be you as a
yeah,
Colt, right?
100%. So for me, I know how much it means to Jim. Jim, he would do anything for any of his players. And it would be my honor to have him be that guy. And I know from him, he's honored for me to pick him to be that. Now, I could have picked a multitude of people. There's a lot of people who helped me get to where I am today and had a big role. And I'm not going to say that he had the biggest, but I do know, what people know me as a Colt. So I think it was fitting to have him be the guy who sends me in as a Colt, because it all starts with Jim.
Dwight Freeney is our guest again, a guest here in Indianapolis, coming back to visit not only because of the football side of it, but Indiana Donor Network. You can find out more about how to become a donor and the great work that they do at indianadonornetwork.org is the website. And again, when you renew your driver's license is the easiest time really to sign up to be a donor. It's important to Dwight Freeney. It's important to me as well and to people that work for the Indiana Donor Network. Dwight, there's so much conversation about Hall of Famers with the Colts, and you obviously Edge is in, Peyton's in, Marvin's in, now you're in, and then the conversation becomes who's the next in line, right? I think that because of the bookends, yourself and Robert Mathis have always been a yin and yang in terms of conversation in football. It's awkward to ask this, but I'm curious, just with Robert Mathis in terms of away from the football field and the situation with Daniel Muir, another teammate of yours in Logansport in the news of late, how much are you aware of that story, or are you concerned for your former teammates and friends?
Well, for me and Robert, Robert is a guy that, he's a great guy. And what he is happening now, and I don't know all the details.
Right.
But, hopefully whatever is happening, he knows what's going on and what he's doing, and he believes in that. I just know that all I care about is that he's safe and that he's good. And if that is what he's doing now and he feels like he's doing the right thing, then that's what he's doing. We will find out later on maybe if whether it be the greatest decision for him and his family or not. But I try not to pry into personal decisions or what you decide to do from a family standpoint. And I don't know all the details, but I do know enough to know that, it may not be the greatest, but then again, who am I to judge? I don't know because I'm not in it. So I just know one thing is that I always hope the best for him, and no matter whatever he's doing.
From a statistical standpoint, the two of you were so similar. As we have talked about before, the thing that kind of separates you really at your position is the spin move.
Yep.
And you talked about the fact that was kind of developed in your days of trying to join the And One Mix Tour from a basketball standpoint.
Yeah.
So if you were to go back and talk to like 12-year-old Dwight Freeney as you were doing the And One mixtape, do you think you would have been more shocked over the fact that would lead you to be a football Hall of Famer, or the fact that your friend Michael Jordan would be the one that was in on the entire process of getting you inducted?
Definitely Michael Jordan, 1,000%. It's kind of weird, and you grew up watching a guy, idolizing a guy, wanting to be like Mike, whatever. And somehow, some way, life just navigates you to being good friends, big brother to that same guy that you cried when he retired from the game of basketball, and that you didn't know him. It's a weird thing, but I'm definitely blessed, and I think that life just has all bunch of surprises, man. You never know where you're gonna go.
Can you see? I'm curious of this when people are mutual Hall of Famers of different sports, right? Yeah. When you're around a guy like him and you guys are simply on a golf course, which in itself is competitive, but can you see or even share with us maybe a moment where you see the drive in a guy like that then makes you realize that you had a similar drive that makes you different than most people?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, we do have a lot of similarities. That's why, we're so close, in that we hang out probably, more than most. It's just because we see the things the same way, in a way. We compete in the same way. So, we'll be on the golf course, and no different of what you would think he would look like, as maybe fourth quarter, game on the line. He has the ball in his hands. He's going to try to end the game. Looks the same way, hole 18, he needs to make a putt or a chip, and has that same look in his eyes.
If you beat him in a round of golf, does he get mad at you?
No, you know what? He doesn't. I think, first of all, I'm his partner more than not. So he's rarely ever playing against me.
So if you cost him a victory, does he get mad at you?
You know what? Surprisingly enough, no.
Really? Because that would be the MO, right?
Because we both screw it up. You know what I mean? I screw up, he screws up. We both screw up in a way. So, and golf is a humbling game, and sometimes he misses the putt that we need to win. Or maybe he missed the putt that he should have made. I do the same. He's really understanding. It's not like, I guess whatever show it was on that how people see him is he's yelling at you, screaming.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
No. It's nothing like that. It's not. The only time he yells at and screams at me is if I didn't see him hit the ball out of bounds and I go for it on a par 5 where I'm supposed to be playing safe.
Right.
And laying out. That's the only time I think that one time I would say that he was looking at me like, why did you do that?
Dwight Freeney is our guest. Dwight, when you mentioned earlier thinking about chances to be a Hall of Famer and knowing that, you felt like you did enough to be in that conversation, and now here we are, but you didn't dwell on it too much during your playing days.
Yeah.
Now that you look back on it, and maybe it is the championship season in 06, but when you look back year by year, what year are you most proud of in terms of what you did on the field?
I mean, it would definitely be the 06 year. Look, any personal accolades, anything that happened in my career personally, they come secondary to team accomplishments. When you win something as a team, do something as a team, that emotion, that feeling that you get outweighs anything else because it's infectious. Everyone's feeling that same energy. You all did it together. That party is going to be so much bigger.
Yeah.
That feeling, and throughout the entire building, throughout the entire city, it just keeps going. It doesn't matter. They can never take it away from you. And what's really special is when you turn on the TV and you're watching another sport, and you're watching a World Series, or you're watching an NBA Finals, or whatever it is, and when they win, you get flashbacks of when you won, and you can feel that same feeling. You get teary-eyed a little bit and smile because you know what that guy's feeling because you felt that before, and that will last a lifetime. So by far, the 2006 season when we won the championship is the best feeling that I've ever had.
Final minute, Dwight, your impressions of this installment of the Colts and what they can do this year.
I honestly think they're going to surprise people. Reason being is because, this is Steichen's second year, okay? He's going to get an opportunity to now, these players and him, more familiarity. And usually when that happens, you see more success. He already had success the first year. Okay, now you have guys coming back, returning. People are healthy, all right, and they have a good foundation. I think things are trending in the right direction. Not saying Super Bowl, not saying anything like that, but I'm going to say.
Well, they got some good young pieces, right? And
but when you have a foundation that is solid, all right, you can, I guess, explode off that foundation and take it to another level. It's when that foundation is shaky and you don't really know who you are and what you're doing and all. Yeah, even though they didn't make the playoffs last year, no one would have thought they would have won as many games as they did with a backup quarterback, first-year coach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So imagine what it should be. And I'll say should be. You never know what's going to actually happen.
And health is a big part of that.
Health is a big thing, but I think what they have right now is a lot of that, intangible stuff that is just more look, man, they going out there playing hard every single snap and every single play. You turn on the television, you see that energy and what they're trying to do. You got the foundational pieces back. I think they have a good opportunity to be good this year.
Lastly, it's going to carry more oomph now, so I want to make sure everybody knows. Dwight Freeney does want people to register as an organ donor and help out and save lives, right?
Absolutely. It's the right thing to do.
IndianaDonorNetwork.org is the website where you can find out more. It will be in early August when Dwight Freeney gets his gold jacket and is forever cemented in Canton, Ohio as a Football Hall of Famer. Very well-deserved and always good to see you. Pleasure having you in. Look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Dwight Freeney joining us on the program. Thanks again to Pato Award for joining us earlier today. For Eddie and Jimmy, I'm Jake. John is up next, and we'll be back with you at noon tomorrow. Thanks for listening to Query & Company.
Cleanly.
He handled it well.
Yeah, he did. I always wonder, this is the communications nerd in me. I'm sure the answer is yes, but like, I wonder if his team on this press tour has prepped him for that. I would assume they would have had to, right?
Like the Daniel years ago.
Yeah.
Like there's,
you have to ask.
There's no way there's no way somebody from his team hasn't been like, hey, this might come up, right? Like
I would think. He's a pretty smart dude.
Yeah.
You could tell, though, that deep down what he wanted to say was like, yeah, man, that guy's fucked up.
Yeah.
I wish I could see. Can you pull up John's camera? Because I had to adjust some things over here.
Oh, he's changed like everything. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on the Jake Query golf lesson schedule, so I'm skedaddling. But
I hope that looks good.
I'm going too. You going to the academy? Where are you going?